Good evening, everyone. How lovely to see so many eager faces in the crowd. A very warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of Architect and Interiors India, thank you for joining us today for an evening that promises to be exciting and enriching. I am Amrita Mohan, your host for this evening. Let me start by telling you a bit about this event. Architect and Interiors India's flagship property design debate is all about taking on contested topics in the field of architecture and design. A phenomenal initiative, Design Debate is multi-city event where every month we had an exciting new city. We have conducted 17 editions so far and traveled across the country. I mean, it is definitely safe to say that Design Debate is taking the design fraternity by storm. And for our 18th edition, we are visiting the capital of India, a city steeped in history and rich cultural heritage. Its heritage reflects the diverse layers of civilization that have flourished here over centuries. From ancient times to modern eras, Delhi has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the blending of cultures, and the preservation of architectural marvels. So here we are introducing Design Debate, a brand new theme, aesthetics and economics, in the national territory of India, Delhi. You will be hearing a lot about the theme from everyone present here tonight, so I won't be taking up much of your time. My humble request to you that we have a lot to absorb here today, so some absolute brilliant names are here present with us. Let us make sure the applause does not die. Before we kickstart the evening, I want to extend gratitude to our partners whose support has made this evening a success. Presenting partner Decor Pro by Asian Paints, associate partners Hafele and Jindal Panther TMT Rebars, category partner Dorma Kaba, exhibit partner L&T Electrical and Automation, hospitality partner Shangri-La Eros, New Delhi. So welcome to this evening replete with knowledge sharing. Let us have a round of applause for Architect and Interiors India Design Debate Delhi edition. To begin with, let me call on stage Mr. Vibhor Srivastav, Managing Director, ITP Media India, our leader and the person who launched ITP Group in India, to deliver the opening address.
Let's make some noise. Louder. Bravo. What an incredible moment to come back to this city, a city that I have learned, grown, both professionally and personally. I think this city has given a lot, and tonight, this evening, I see a house full to its capacity, and it gives me so much of joy to be with you and get so much of love from this city and the people here. And I think this city boasts and truly is worthy of all accolades in field of any discipline, even from the world of creativity to the government machinery. This city has all in its store. The food, the people, the warmth, and this is endless that I can go. I really get nostalgic when I come and talk to you in the city of Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 18th edition, और जैसे कहते हैं, the more the wine age, the whiskey age, it becomes better and better. So 18th edition, and we have gone through immense learning and understanding from our partners from the design fraternity who stood with us and believed in us to help create some of the most credible, neutral, and meaning platforms which allows knowledge sharing at the highest level. So when I was looking at Delhi, and each of the edition, we always look at a curator, somebody who understands the real, what that city thrives for, what that city holds, what the people of that city holds and understand. So in all my search, I ended up to my very, very dear friend, Architect Vivek Gupta. Please give him a hand. So this handsome hunk initially was trying to be a little tough with me. And I said, listen, we are not going to take any of your tantrums. We want you to do some good work and all your wisdom, experience, friendship, and the fraternity, bring all of them together and let's do some real discussions which allows all of us to understand and grow together. Design debate. As it is, you understand, in any segment, in your own segment, in your fraternity, there is by far too many things. And when we look ourselves, I said, how do we navigate? What is our narrative to this industry? And that really gave birth to design debate. A debate which starts and helps us to understand. And then we came back with this topic, aesthetics versus economics. I think a lot is in store this evening. Some of the incredible brand. And if you see, I just can't stop looking at Asian Paints. What a fabulous body of work I think they put. I think you must go visit, spend time with them. I'm not going to stand for too long here and not do too many discourses. Over the evening, we're going to announce a few of the very important initiatives that ITP does. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for being here, and I'm sure we're going to have a great evening and great warm friendships and lots of learning. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Vivo, for that heartwarming address. Before we delve further into the evening, I would like to call upon Vismaya M. from the brand team of our presenting partner, Decor Pro by Asian Paints.
Yeah, good evening to one and all present here. This is Vismaya from Asian Paints, and I'm just super happy to be here today. Only because I spent the last 15 to 16 hours not sleeping and staying right here in this place, making sure that this stall comes up, making sure that every nook and corner is exactly the way we had envisioned it. The entire production team is also with me, and we have been staying up, and I think that's also where I'm getting my energy from right now, having had so much caffeine in the night. So this is Decor Pro by Asian Paints. Now, I would just like to start with a little introduction about who we are and what we do technically, right? Now, Asian Paints is known, as the name suggests, for paints. So Asian Paints is known to be a person, or rather a personality, I would say, brand personality in paint, in the painting industry. And we've been here for about 75 years right now. Now, we as a company, we are looking at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and now 5,000 unique independent shades of color when it comes to paint as such. We will be doing much, much, much more in the next couple of years. We are expanding in the same paint segment as well. We started off with something as Tractor Emulsion, as all of you would probably know, one of our economy paints. It is, what I would say is that it's probably India's heart, Tractor Emulsion as such. But we also have the Royale, we have Aspera, and we have so many other brands that have come up that definitely speaks to the architects and interior designer segment now. As we went by, right, we realized that, we wanted to do something more for the walls of a house. So we went into something exciting like textures. We got some of the textures you can see here as well. So we got into textures and we looked at it for about 5, 6, 7 years of research. We realized that we are getting it somewhat right. So we started off with just a simple Royal Play, which is a paint-based texture. Then we went into actual textures, which is like clay, lime, and probably even the plaster texture that you see here today has grown probably over the last 10 years, right, of intense research, specifically with architects and interior designers as well. Now, as we went through this journey, we were looking at a consumer's house, we were looking at servicing, looking at all of these things. We realized we're getting the walls right, but what about the rest of the space? So when we looked, like we were looking here, and then we look here, and then we are like, we don't have anything here, technically. There is nothing that's standing, that's nothing that's a space as such. Now when that conversation came up, right, then the entire company thought we had to actually change who we are as a personality. So we were paint personality. We had our logo, which is also a paintbrush, basically, based on a paintbrush. Then they decided that we need to completely invent ourselves, reinvent ourselves. I think this target segment, for sure, all of you would know what this means, right? I think we've been reinventing the wheel for a very long time in the space of design and decor. I think we're still in the midst of one, if I would say. But as this went by, we realized that we can't be a paintbrush anymore. We need to be something bigger, something that gives hope, for us itself to learn and to do something greater and bigger. And so we became the Infinity logo that you see here, that you see there as well. Infinity meaning we are limitless. We want to do something, we want to do more. And even right now with the space that you see, we are not going to stop here as well. We have so many things in line, and we are looking at expanding in a crazy way. Now when this came about, we went into kitchens, then we went into bath, then we had great tie-ups with some amazing, extremely respectable companies like, of course, White Teak is one that you would all know. It's a very beloved brand, I would say, of this country. So we had some really great tie-ups with Sabyasachi, Sarita Handa, just to name a few, Jaipur Rugs as well. And all of this you will see here at our stall. It was an extremely exciting journey for the past, I would say, 15 years or so, where we've been rapidly expanding into these particular categories and segments. This is a short AV, if you could please play it, which will depict this.
Since Asian Paints' foray into home decor, Beautiful Homes has become the largest integrated home products and services player in India, providing daily inspiration, beautiful products, and interior design services.
For Asian Paints, it was a natural extension to get into the area of home decor. From the share of surface to the share of space, whenever customer thinks from painting to renovation to first homes to second homes, Asian Paints becomes an integral part of that entire journey.
So this sounds great. Now we've got all the product categories. We've spent years and years of research with different types of consumer segments, specifically the end consumer as well. Now that we're into servicing for the end consumer, we spent time with builders as well as we grew into the bath segment and the kitchen segments to understand what modularity means basically. And then, of course, if we had to foray anywhere further than that, then the biggest harbingers of decor is architects and interior designers. So we started our journey then, basically in 2012. What we realized is that we need to form a particular vertical that is servicing, understanding, educating, collaborating with architects and interior designers. So that's who we are, basically Decor Pro. We're a service and we're only for architects and interior designers. Now what do we do? What do we service? Do we service every need of yours? Of course we do that, but everybody does that, right? Any product company would give you that service. What is unique about us, right? The exciting part of our service is that your firm will be assigned one point of contact for every single need of yours across any projects, any type of projects in fact, and whatever category you see here. I think this is the only stall that we have done in the past 12 cities or so that has every single product category. I think we were not able to get such a huge stall, so I'm very happy that we were given this opportunity today in a city like Delhi. So every product category that you see here, right, you don't have to hustle, you don't have to call multiple people, you just have that one person and they'll get everything done for you. And not just done for you in terms of whom to contact, they will actually get the product to your doorstep, right? That is the level at which we have actually extended this particular service. And it's only for architects and interior designers very particularly. Now we started in 2012. So that's when we started, how we started this was also a very interesting story. We got a panel of architects and interior designers. We started very small. We wanted to understand what were your requirements, what were your pain points, and most importantly, how do you view design? What is it that you want in a product? What is it that you want in a service? And how do you see your clients? So this is something that we did very, very rigorously with just a very small target segment. And then we realized, we have to launch into this particular segment. Now, why? Is it because they give us a lot of business? Is it because it's a high-end luxury segment? It's actually because architects and interior designers, you're very unique to us. In fact, you're very dear to us because you teach us how to grow. And I think for the past since 2012, this has been the journey with Asian Paints. Every product that you see here today, like specifically the RK Argila, this is a clay product, right? Everything has been researched and understood through architects and interior designers only. So we had our panel of architects just kept growing and growing as per these particular years. And we are now at a very, very, very proud 7,000 plus architects who are giving us sites, 6 sites or so, per year. And it's amazing. It's amazing to be a part of your journey because without you, we would have never even learned any of this. We would have never been able to put up something like this at all, right? So this is something that Asian Paints holds very dear to its heart. And then we realized around maybe 2 to 3 years ago that we need to do something bigger. We need to do something bigger with this target segment. And what I mean by that is that we decided our relationship with you has to be much more strengthened. That we can't just be this servicing. It still felt very servicing related. We wanted to actually become your partners and we wanted you to see us as someone that you could trust. And that is the most important thing ever. So hence we called relationship executives, right? We decided that each firm that we are collaborating with will have one guy who will take care of everything, but most importantly, will also introduce you to our network of builders, dealers, contractors, internal designers, internal stakeholders in the internal team that can actually bring about your entire design together. Now we're looking at your design and our entire execution to that particular level, right? So you can call us your contractors maybe, but we will be your complete end-to-end solution, and you will just be the person that's designing and thinking, right? That is where your energy and effects are going to place. Then we decided we need to do something more. So now what we're looking at is that we are making collaterals, we are making certain different types of SKUs just for architects and interior designers, and you'll not see this anywhere, right? Certain products that you see in our stall today are only open to you. Like you will not be able to find them anywhere, you will not even be able to Google it as such, some of these, right? And even if you could Google it, there'll be no link for you to purchase it. So it can only be purchased through the company and only through architects and interior designers that have been enabled by us. So this is what we are at today. So we have a set of architects as such who are our own panels, and we do everything for them basically. And certain things that they say, we use that to grow the next year. Now another very exciting thing that we decided to launch in about 2015 is our loyalty program for architects as such. This is a very, very curated program that kind of does not just look at point system. Of course, we do have that. But certain additional benefits that you get here are very relationship oriented. Like you'll have to be invited by the team to be able to redeem these particular points. So now I'll give you an example of what happened just a few months ago. A set of architects, about 80 of them across the country that have been working with Asian Paints, went to Copenhagen with us, wherein they attended that design fair in Copenhagen for 3 entire days. And we curated the entire trip to ensure that they had a gala night and that they could do the canal cruise and that they could do so much more, show me shopping, and we had an entire an entire evening planned out for them, like right from where they were going, from the dress code, and where should they go next, and how are they going to go, and what were the small surprises between. Everything was planned by us, and I think more than the architects, I think we had a great time interacting with them. The entire hierarchy was there, and our hierarchy is here as well, actually. So this is the level to which we went to this particular year. I think this was the best trip that we have had, and we are really going to get better from here on. Now, this is something that is very exciting, that is something that is here to stay. And we, basically Asian Paints Delhi unit, the entire unit is here. All the managers, there are 3 of us that are right here, and 2 of our regional managers for the entire country of Decor Pro are also here. 2 brand managers who are also for Decor Pro are also here, basically, and we are all here. The entire huge team is here today to interact with you, and we want to collaborate with you more than anything else. We want to know what you think. We want to know whether we can do better for you. And we definitely want to empanel all of you. Please visit our stall. We have put in all the effort, and we want to know what you think, and we want to know if we can do better here as well. And it's been great speaking to you. You guys have been such a sweet audience listening to me. Thank you so much. This is Vismaya from Asian Paints. Please, I'll love to meet you at the stall. Thank you.
Thank you, Vismaya, for shedding light on the exciting offerings Decor Pro by Asian Paints has in store for all of us. Okay, I would like to introduce to all of you the curator for today. Who shall also be moderating the panel discussions, which will unfold soon. His reputation precedes him, yet it's worth highlighting his remarkable achievements and profound contributions to the architecture and design fraternity here. An architect by qualification, he is also an adventitious chef. He often does a lot of cooking himself. Cooking of ideas, drawing parallels between designs and cooking. He believes life, like every Michelin-starred dish, with the right ingredients, taste, quantities, and presentation, each design project, too, is an ideal blend of aesthetics and functionality. His work does not result from consideration of style and ideology, but from a quest to create a unique concept for a singular combination of people, position, and place. The 3 guiding principles of client, context, and climate are the backbone of his works. His contextual approach and ability to infuse a genuine uniqueness into all the projects he undertakes have consistently yielded buildings that transform their immediate environments. He believes that buildings should be like responsible citizens, and the aesthetic qualities of a building should grow from the specific characteristic of each project, such as its location, construction technology, and purpose. Each building should have a soul. In addition to the ethereal quality, his designs have covered a wide range of solutions and materials. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause for the curator and the moderator of the Delhi Edition Design Debate, architect Vivek Gupta, principal architect from Arvind Vivek and Associates. Vivek sir, can we please have you on stage?
Hi guys, thank you all for coming here. When Vibhor told me that I need to get all of you together, I said I was whimpering because, this is not the platform that I could man. But then, I'm at that stage in my life where the studio colleagues are happy when I'm out of the studio, and wife is very happy when I'm out of the home. So I took that up. I was almost forced to do that. But great to have you guys here. And the most humbling thing for me was that one call to all these busy architects, and they all agreed. So I'm really lucky. And this is something that I really deeply cherish, the bond with the fraternity. And I think that's my earning, I don't earn in rupees, but I earn in relationships. And I think that's a very big thing to do. ITP, Vibhor, I think has been the forerunner of our profession and how they handhold us. And this is another event that is being done by them. And thank you for hosting us today. I think we should get on with the panel, and we'll start with, so the flow of the event, I think she will tell you, but I think it is that we will have a panel with the young gen, the next gen people, who are all next gen in terms of their age, but the body of work is amazing, the kind of work that they do is amazing. And I, for once, at my stage in life, feel that the architecture and the design fraternity is in amazing hands, because the kind of work they do, it just is stupendous. Also, the Doyens who are there, I think they're all reaching here now, were very, very kind enough to agree to come despite their extremely busy schedule. And I think so that will be happening next. But in between, we have a keynote speaker in one of the most reticent guys. When he comes, I will introduce him, Amrish Arora, who will do the keynote speaker. And I think so we have a great evening unfolding in front of us. So look forward to that, and thank you, Vibhor, once again for having me over here. Thank you.
Stage. Now I'm going to request Mr. Vibhor Srivastav and Mr. Pritesh Salian to step on the stage. Can we please have Anubhav Ghosh from Decor Pro by Asian Paints on stage, please? Can one of the brand representatives from Asian Paints please step on the stage? Moving on, let us now have a look at what brand Dormakaba has in store for us. Can we have the AV, please?
Access solutions from Dormakaba. A barrier-free world for everyone. Coping with everyday life isn't always easy, especially if barriers are placed in our way. In hotels, in offices, or within your own four walls.
I would like to now invite Mr. Anand Mishra, Senior Manager, Architectural Specification North from Dormakaba, to kindly present further about the brand.
Very warm good evening to all of you. This is an amazing session. We are expecting an amazing session today, and First of all, let me thank the organizers, ITP Media, Vibhor, Indrajit, for giving us a chance to be here. And I look forward for an amazing evening today. And the presentation which I am going to run is a very short presentation because I would not like you to hold from the amazing discussions that you are going to have today. So basically, Dorma or Dorma Kaaba, as most of you are aware about Dorma, but I don't know how many of you are about Dorma Kaaba. Maybe some of you are, but some of you are not. So today, what I am going to talk about, or what I am going to show you, is not about any products per se. For products, we have a stall. You can always join us. So I'll just take you through the company, what we do, what is our origin, what we stand for. So ladies and gentlemen, there is Dorma Kaaba for you. So we are there for last 160 years in more than 130 countries, having more than 16,000 employees worldwide. We had a net sales of 2.8 billion Swiss francs last year, and what is most important is we have more than 1,800 patents. So we have more than 1,800 patented products. Before we move further, I'll just show you a small audio visual which will give you an idea of the journey of Dorma and Kaaba as separate brands coming together to become Dorma Kaaba. So there is the audio visual for you, ladies and gentlemen. So I think there is some problem with the audio visual. So moving further, we have a strong heritage and we have more than 150 years of experience. And what I would like to tell you, like before 2015, Dorma and Kaaba, there were two separate brands, but 2015 onwards, we are moving ahead as Dorma Kaaba. So as far as our presence across the globe, so all this red color, what you see, is where we are present in as 100% wholly owned subsidiaries. If I talk about South Asia, we have our regional headquarters at Chennai, and we are covering all these major countries, SAARC countries. If you talk about accreditations or certifications, we comply to all the certifications, whether it is a quality management system, whether it is an environmental management system, green building certificate, OSAS, anything you name it, we have it. When it comes to performance-related certifications, we have CE, we have UL, we are conformed to ANSI, we conform to EN, name it any kind of certification or any kind of standards, we comply to that. Now, we have, for the first time, country's first NABL accredited hardware lab for testing. So we can test our hardware here, automatics and all, we can do it. And this is a facility which is free for architects, which is free for customers to visit. Now, moving forward, so what is the trends that define us, the world today and tomorrow? So if we see the access industry today, a lot of trends which are happening today. For example, especially after COVID, post-COVID, so from touch to touchless, the trend is moving towards that. From mechanical to electromechanical. So now you see more stress towards electromechanical, right? People don't want to carry keys. Integrated, connected and components. So everything is integrated now. Access and flow. So we have a continuous access and flow. So there is a merger. And merger through seamless design. Then we are providing access as a service. So how is that possible? So we will see that. And of course, biometric, mobile biometric authentication. So now cloud-based services, and a lot of facilities. So product as a service. That is now the trend today. What is our purpose? So this is our tagline, the purpose for every place that matters. So any place which matters to you, we are there with our solution. And what is our vision? Our vision is to be a trusted partner worldwide for safe, secure and sustainable places. And what is our offering? So our offering is based on 4 pillars. What are the 4 pillars? First is access reimagined. So we strive to balance form and function, and we enable both. Integrated access. So integrated access is seamless flow of people, like integrated access at every stage of the planning and building life cycle. The seamless flow I was talking about. So flow of making the flow of people, the barrier free that we talk about, the concept of barrier free. So making the flow of people as effortless as possible. So when you see a Dorma Kaaba door operator, you don't have to do anything. It just lets you pass. So that is something called as a barrier free concept. And we are trying to incorporate it in all our major design elements. And of course, last but not the least, sustainability, which is the buzzword for today. So making the workplace more sustainable and in the long term. And how do we go ahead now? What is the way ahead for us? The way ahead is, of course, digital. We are looking at digital. And as market leaders, we are driving towards innovation. We are driving towards products which will be the cutting edge, use the cutting edge technology in the coming times. For example, we have product like EntryWorks. What is that? It is an intelligent door which is doing end-to-end facility planning for you, for architects, right from inception to planning to even after installation. It will do a complete end-to-end planning. We have Resideo, which is a cloud platform. For whom? For facility management people, and designed for tenants and owners in a multi-housing. We have Argus Air sensor barrier, which is what? Which is a biometric or contactless sensor barrier. We are coming with a green ST Pro green sliding door operator, which is what? Which is again an automatic sliding door, but with a difference, with a thermally separated profile. And as I said, so we are focusing a lot on sustainability, and it is our key differentiator. How? We are committed to fostering sustainable development along our entire value chain. And how do we do that? We do that by, of course, production of products which are sustainable, with dealing with employees and business partners in a manner which befits the standards. Transparent reporting through recognized standards. This is one of our major process. And of course, membership to these organizations, which are leading international organizations for sustainability purpose. And of course, from time to time, we do external audits or external assessments. So that is how we are committed towards, this goal of sustainability. We also comply to the 7 goals of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And in line with that, our Chennai plant, as we have shown today, is 100% now solar. So we are not dependent on any other power. We are doing 100% on solar. Recapping it, so how do we enable your business? So we enable your business on the 4 pillars of access reimagined, integrated access, seamless flow, and sustainability. And of course, we are providing you cutting edge design through our products and solutions worldwide. If I talk about where we are, so as I said in the beginning, we are at every place that matters. So if you talk about any sector out of this, whether it is airports, whether it is healthcare, whether it is transport and logistics, whether it is industry manufacturing, whether it is residential retail, we are present everywhere. We have some of the other products. People put their trust in us. So we have some of the iconic projects we have done across the globe, in India, name it wherever location you want. Maybe some project in Germany, in Australia, in China, in Singapore. So these are some of the iconic projects. Of course, the list is endless. I won't be able to cover everything. I'm just naming a few. If you talk about office space, commercial space, we have all the major clients with us today, whether it is Google's, whether it is Amazon's, TCS, or any player. If I talk about the infrastructure segment, all the airports, major airports, I am sure you must have seen the Dorma Kaaba automatic door, sensor door. Now we are also there with our e-boarding gates there. So if you talk about Delhi airport, talk about Mumbai airport, Bangalore, I am sure you must have used one or the other time the Dorma Kaaba sensor barrier gate for self-boarding. We are coming up with all the major airports now, so latest being the Lucknow airport. So, yes, gentlemen, we are there in all the spaces that you can think of, and we would, as architects and interiors, we are looking for your opinion, how we can be better, how we can be serving you better. We are helping you with whatever specifications, drawings, and we'll request you feedback on our products as and when. If we talk about the hospitality segment, we are there with all the major brands, and we are almost in more than 165,000 properties across the globe. Before I end, I would say that this is not the end of my reference list. There is more to it. There is many more to it. I'm sure someone or the other you have used Dormakaba in your project anywhere. And we have full team present over here today, and we have a stall also. Not as big as Asian Paints, but yeah, it's a modest stall. So we would request you all to have a look at it and grace us with your feedback and comments. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you very much for a patient listening, and have a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for showcasing innovative solutions and advancements that Dormakaba brings to the forefront. And now we move on to the most awaited part of the evening, our panel discussions. Kicking off our panel, we have a dynamic next-gen architects, the ones who will dictate the architecture of tomorrow. As mentioned, we have architect Vivek Gupta, who will be moderating this panel discussion. Vivek sir, can we please have you on stage?
Hi guys, so on with it now. As I said earlier, that I'm really humbled to have this set of young people who are the harbingers of design tomorrow. And they're doing such amazing works. They may be the next gen, but their body of work is very mature. The kind of work that they're doing is amazing. And they are also the right people to show us the way in the debate of economics versus aesthetics. I think there is a wordplay here. I personally feel that there is never a versus. All the architects are forever trying to make a match of economics in their projects to deliver aesthetics in the best possible manner. And without much ado, I think let me invite the ladies first. Let us have Meetu Mathur from Gyanpi Mathur. Her body of work is amazing, and I think she will be able to throw some amazing light on what economics versus aesthetics means. Manishi Agarwal Singh, with her practice in Gurgaon, is again doing some large-scale works and a very good mind to pick up on the amazing topic that we have. Sanchit Arora, the poster boy, my favorite, I always tell him. Innovative all the time, innovating with his materiality, innovating with the stuff that he's doing, and he's one of the most published young architects. Priyanka Singh of Chalk Studio, young practice but doing again amazing work, and that's what gives us complete hope that we are in good hands. Amit Murao, he's a partner with Ashray Design, handling some very large-scale projects which are extremely important for the infrastructure boom that the country is seeing. Am I missing anybody? Prakhar, sorry. The youngest of the lot, Prakhar, fantastic architect. I think within 4 years of setting up practice, Prakhar has done some amazing work. He's been awarded on various forums and happens to be a great speaker as well. So over to you guys. Am I going to get a chair? I have to stand like that. Saza de rahe ho yaar. I'm good with this. Okay guys, so on with it now. Economics versus aesthetics. Let me start with, again, Meetu. You were the first off the block. Do you really think that there is any project which does not involve economics? Knowing your body of works, and let's start from where you picked up the kind of project that you're doing, some extremely large-scale projects with NBCC. You're transforming the entire South Delhi, your Nauroji Nagar, and all those projects, which are government projects. All the time when you're doing government projects, you're looking at plinth area rates. You know, you're completely boxed from all the sides, and how do you manage to weave out some good aesthetics when everything is defined for you, the plinth area rate is defined, the kind of budgets that the project has is defined. You're working with PMCs, you're working with government, you're working on L1 contractors. So even the construction quality suffers. How do you manage that?
So first of all, thank you so much for having all of us here and considering me as Gen Next. I first of all don't really think the topic is economics versus aesthetics. To me, it is economics and aesthetics, because for us it's very important to actually create a balance between the two and not really look at it as two different aspects of any design journey. So, like you said, at a very young age, when I was freshly out of college, I was kind of pushed into those project realms wherein, like you said, the rates are fixed before the project is even conceptualized. So for us, it was very important to create understand the life cycle of the project and see that this is the cost and how do we bring in the aesthetic quality within the right cost. So for us, it has always been a very conscious decision to see what materials, what technology, what design should be brought in a certain kind of project. And I would like to admit that we have learned it in the hard way and still learning on that aspect. So yes, plinth area rates and CPWD norms and all of those are very restrictive. But as a designer or as an architect and also looking at interior design, one has to really figure out ways to kind of look into that, because the project is, the concept of the project is finalized and straight away we have to put in the rates and then the tender is floated. And when the contractor comes in with the L1 is when the fun starts. It's when you start looking at the details and then that's when you start getting into the understanding of how to balance the cost within the cost of the contractor. So it's a fair game, I would say.
I think well said. Manishi, I think you are also doing some large-scale projects, but luckily, as of what I know, you are free from the clutches of government projects, but then you are dealing with builders. Again, for them, the FSI cost is extremely important because at the end of the day, they're selling product. Do you find them cutting corners when they give you a brief? Because eventually you're working for a client when you're working for a builder.
Yes. So we primarily work on two
There
kind
are
of...
not many builders in it.
So I hope there would be actually, because we want this heard. So when we are given a project, when it's on a repeat mode, whether it's a plotted development or a high-rise project, where you're repeating, so the numbers go from hundreds to thousands, every square foot increase of cost of even a rupee, because we're talking about lakhs of square feet of area, becomes lakhs and crores of rupees. So yes, there is a certain compromise, but in those projects, I think economics govern what the aesthetics allow. So as economics, it has to be based on the economics. Having said that, that's one segment of work. I want to actually talk about another area. In this conversation of aesthetics versus economics, I want to talk about the economics of aesthetics. So almost a decade and a half back, there was a design shift that happened. There was a lot of industries that were delving into a kind of design which was aesthetically very high. What I mean by saying that is that people understood that the demand for a sincere, honest, enjoyable design is what aesthetics allow. There was a shift, and if you notice, almost a decade ago, you look at restaurant designs, where aesthetics was not limited to the elite, the culturally elite, the socially elite people only, or aesthetically high design did not say it's only for the rich, and it did not communicate power and influence. People are looking at an experience, and aesthetic allows that. So we are talking about not only limiting ourselves to design. So the malls started looking like hotel lobbies, hospitals started looking like hotel lobbies, restaurants became elite in their own way, and they would continue their design even in the washrooms. Now, what does that say? There's a business angle involved to this. People started doing better business when they started giving a better experience to people. So that's the economics of design, where aesthetics help people get more customers. The trend that Starbucks started has been picked up by many other coffee outlets. So I think that's what we need to look at.
That's a great point that you made, because, it is now linking your good design to good business. I think that's a very, very good takeaway for this. Sanchit, somebody like you, because I think as an architect, our primary duty is to look after the aesthetics. Absolutely. And I see you very smartly maneuvering through your materiality in different kind of genre of projects that you do. What plays the most important role. Do you make a balance between, your wish list versus the client's budget, and tweak the materiality, or is it a straight game of cost per square foot versus what you can deliver?
I mean, hi everyone. The thing is that what is the basic need, where is actually the need of actually when an architect comes into play, right? Like that's the basic question, right? Cost versus aesthetics, right? You're hired, and I have a question for you actually. What is the percentage of people currently, like the population of India, who can actually afford architects? It's actually less than 5%, right? Within 5%, if you like sort of demarcate, like 50% of the people don't even know that concept of, can actually aesthetics be actually equated to, like the costings, right? With good costings, you do get good aesthetics, but then the rest 50 actually think that when they actually hire an architect, means that you're going to get good aesthetics, but at the cost of, getting lower costs. So it's actually a sort of a limbo that we are in, and it continues. But then simultaneously, when the process is going on, you go through a lot of typologies of work, be it restaurants or retail or houses. When we are doing restaurants for that matter, that is where the major issue comes in, because these guys are coming with number crunching from the investors, or let's say their own money. So that's where actually the big game comes in as to how the inversely proportional rule kind of follows. But when you come down to actually having a house for that matter, or residence for that matter, it's where they actually live. And, they have this feeling that, this is going to be our house, so we're going to spend, right? Because ultimately they'll be using it every day of their lives. So there is this typology difference where this rule kind of starts playing through, where I actually personally have started feeling that, because if it's a sort of a rented or a sort of a commercial property, an office or a restaurant, that is used for that specific hours, right? Versus a house. So this is a limbo that we are going on in currently in the given.
I hear you, because like Meetu said, life cycle of a project.
That's true.
Restaurants are supposed to perish after a few years or something, so maybe the budgets are lower. But when you do homes, then it's a different ballgame altogether.
It's basically on an average 3 to 4, 5 years versus let's say 15 years right now, right? Yeah. If you see it on an average cycle rate. So that is where the cost economics or the ergonomics start playing in. So that is where their mindset keeps changing. So I think that precisely answers the question.
Yeah, good point. Priyanka, he spoke about residential projects being free of the clutches of economics. And I'm sure the kind of work that you do a lot of interiors which are high-end interiors. Right. So you get a carte blanche to do whatever you want to do, or how does it work for you?
That's not the case. I think everyone here sitting here would know that that's not the case. It seems that with like these high-end interior spaces, especially like houses and all, you get like a lot of free hand. But I think with that comes their own struggles. If you deal with the grandmas, the moms, the daughter-in-laws, the sons and the kids, so it's not as easy as it seems. People are willing to spend more on their houses, that's for sure. But I think the money goes to contractors, not to us.
No, but you get a free hand to do the specifications.
Yeah, but then again,
the cost of the project
is still very sort of restrictive to, again, what the end client wants. It's not as much of a free hand as I would want to have still.
No, I do understand an architect doesn't get paid as much even as a stone layer, so that is a pain point that we all have.
And I don't want to around in Rolls Royces these days. I've seen that, so they earn a lot of money.
Yeah, certainly, but that's our job. So I think, but the point was that do you think that in your projects where homes are also aspirational, so
right.
Do you think you get more leverage to play around with the budgets and everything? It's also like if you're comparing that, okay, if I put this material, it's 250 rupees a square foot versus this, which is 300 rupees. So I think if you're going to the client, he would, by and large, I think, select a 300 rupees if it's going to give you better aesthetics. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it comes at the time of the BOQ when you sit with the client and sort of make them see the larger picture. You still have to squeeze into their budget. So you might compromise, let's say, land on a wardrobe, but you maybe put like a marble in the living room. So just stuff like that we have to do right towards the end. I do feel like even with clients with big budgets, do have a budget in mind. you never have like a free hand. It's not like a deal of camellias where just money is just flowing, and then towards the end it comes into 100 crore bill, and then
it goes out of your pocket. Prakhar, somebody like you, very young, unbiased, unadulterated practice as of now, and you listen to your inner voice also. I was looking through your portfolio and I saw one of the projects where I think that's a retail space, and I saw a structure which is more like an installation. Was there a reason that you did more like an installation that could be picked up and replicated somewhere else, or it was, we are all obsessed with aesthetics. We are with aesthetics all the time. Sometimes I argue, why can't we have modular structures, It's cost effective. Maybe, tomorrow you can start doing cookie cutter model. We are all obsessed with aesthetics. So it doesn't mean that a cookie cutter model cannot be aesthetically pleasing. So what's your take on that, Prakhar?
So, hi everyone. The project that you're talking about, see, we are a young practice. So we are very romantic still, I would say. So every
unadulterated as of now.
Every project that comes in, we have the aspiration that, okay, we have to do this differently. So we do some R&D, we see how similar kind of spaces have been done in the past. And we really have this idea that we have to, redefine the kind of spaces that we have in our country, and we have to push the architecture and design forward. So the project that you're talking about, it became modular. It was not essentially a modular project to start with. So also you mentioned the free hand that Priyanka answered. I would tell you, architects do get a free hand until we are at a stage of conceptual design. As soon as the BOQ comes in, the restriction starts to come in eventually. So that was the first project for an upcoming sneaker brand in India. And when we did the design, everyone was really pleased with this, with the client, our team as well. But when the cost came in, they were like, okay, this is well over our budget. Then we had to, innovate. So we were like, okay, what if we turn this design into a modular thing, and you can, uninstall it and, maybe take it to another city in some time. So that was the idea behind it. And as of now, I feel when we start a project, our idea is more about, okay, how aesthetically pleasing it can be. Because ultimately, if someone's hiring an architect, we do have to find that balance between aesthetics and economics. But if it doesn't look good, if it doesn't make you feel good, then what's the point? So
you wouldn't make a compromise. I'm sure that none of us would make a compromise when it comes to the aesthetic, because
Yes.
that is what we are hired for. Otherwise, they will start having chartered accountants to make buildings, On the question of BOQ, Amit, you do a lot of infrastructure projects. You're doing a lot of PEB buildings where the BOQ is made on day one, literally. So, and the cost is by and large almost fixed, because it's an industrial project. Everybody knows what the end cost is going to be. How do you bring in aesthetics in your industrial projects?
So definitely, industrial and warehousing is a sector wherein there is a very tight, budget constraint, and the client is not really concerned that much with the aesthetics, unlike other typology of projects. So what we try to do over there in such kind of projects, though they are extremely functional, so we can't really compromise on the functionality at all. But then what we try to do is that we try to play around with the elevation. And, even the elevation material is fixed. So we can't really, just bring in ACP and glazing. So even if the material is fixed, we try to play with the colors. We try to play with the composition of the material as well. So, not just industrial and warehousing, but we do a lot of other typology of projects as well. And, for the non-industrial and non-warehousing projects, I would like to say that it's not necessary that aesthetic design cannot be economical, and it's not necessary that economical design cannot be aesthetic. So we always try to start with some sort of a core idea, big concept, and then we try to protect it like a baby. So there will be a lot of constraints, a lot of challenges like budget constraints, this and that, but then we try to, protect it from all these challenges. We try to maybe dilute the core idea a little bit, but then we try to stick with that. And that is how we progress in all our projects.
Great point. But that, that's a little worrisome for me as somebody who sees the Instagrammable pictures being the only way that you think your project is doing good, is aesthetically pleasing or no. So I think, skin to architecture. When you said elevation, somebody like me who studied in Chandigarh, where we had a facade control, there was only plan that we could maneuver. There was nothing, everything was fixed. So I thought that architecture is an experience. So it's not, aesthetics doesn't come just by a facade. Aesthetics doesn't come just by a skin. It's about the soul that you put into the project. Sanchit, I see a lot of soul in your work. You want to elaborate on that? How do you, when you start a project, what is your approach? What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
So the first thing, like I said, we try to figure out what will be the big idea for this project, okay? And I would like to bring along, share one example. So we are working with a big, clothing brand, very, very famous brand, but I'm not stating the name. So we got a project to design their guest house, okay? And with my initial meeting was with the MD of the company, and, he stated a vision that, yes, I want a nice guest house and all, and, try to, definitely not a 5-star, but maybe a 4-star sort of a thing. Then we took this up as a challenge, and then we tried to give it a very beautiful form. So the form that came out, I was really happy with it. Then the next step was like, you were just mentioning regarding the BOQ thing. So the next step was, now tell us the budget of this project. We stated the budget. They told us, just cut this to half. Just cut the budget to half, and we don't care about the design and all. Just trim.
So what went out of the window?
I'm sorry?
What went out of the window?
So what we did, first of all, I had to have another meeting with the MD to convince him that, sir, please don't compromise with the form. It's looking beautiful. If you don't have the budget, we'll not do the interiors of the first floor. Okay? Because he said that I don't want so many rooms, etc., etc. And so basically the point is that we tried to protect it. Ultimately, they were still insisting that, the covered area is going too much. Even if we leave the interiors, the construction will still cost a certain amount. So we had to, they literally made us chop off the building. So like I said, they were not concerned with the aesthetics at all. So the way we reduced the, the total built up area was also in a very creative manner, so that we were still able to retain the essence of the design. So these things definitely do happen.
My question to all of you, how many of you would be ready to quit a project if the budget is not up to your calculation, I would say, or all of you will make a compromise and try and do the best, which is an architect's duty to do that?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, please. No. I was just stating.
So one thing I have learned from the journey of architecture and creating a business of architecture is that, from my father also, is that it all has to make business sense at the end of the day. So everything connects to how much business are you creating for your client. And if you are creating a good business value model for your client, they are going to come back to you. No matter how pretty or bad the Instagram pictures look like.
My question to you is, are you creating a business model for yourself as well?
Yes. So the thing is that it's, and I was really amazed to see the Asian Paints presentation, because the way they have done it is actually, they have made economics out of the aesthetics business, wherein a lot of architects are still struggling with the economics.
Honestly speaking,
I think I wouldn't throw a project out just because the budget is not there.
I might differ out here. I come from a school of thought where... No, surely, with all due respect to you, I think that is where...
You seem to be a likely candidate to throw the...
Till I don't get my design done, right? So the thing is that, you start young, right? The reason why we started young was that we reach a stage in our lives where, you tell the client that this is XYZ or ABC, this is what I want. Let's reverse engineer the costings someday or the other.
Absolutely, absolutely.
10 years down the line into our profession, it's been 10 years for me, I think there is some sort of command that you go with into the meeting room now, with the client being there. There is a reason why the client is hiring you. So ultimately, you're jumping that barrier of that, when you go into the meeting and saying that you just half the cost of the project. I might not agree. I think, you might, it would be actually a great option to kind of walk away, because if you want our services, I think you have to be stringent sometimes and, sort of draw a line, but at the cost of not sort of bothering your school of thought, which you might have. So, I mean, with all due respect, is to each his own.
This is coming, the mantra is coming straight from the poster boy of Gen Next, who was saying that my way or highway, that's the way you need to...
No, it's not. It's actually not. At the end of the day, when the client is giving you a budget, you have to be realistic. At the end of the day, if the cost is matching you, matching your expectations or the sort of economics of the design that you have in your mind, and the client wants that vision, how will you be able to give that vision half the cost, is my question.
So see, so I would rather take this kind of a situation as a challenge to myself. I will definitely not walk away in such situations. When we made the design, client was really happy to see the design. When the budget thing came up, then they were like, just cut it into half. I'd rather, rather than just giving up on the design, like I said, we need to protect it.
You gave up on
like
the second floor, actually.
No, we didn't give up. We maintained the form. We just told them, you hold the interiors until you have the budget to do it. So like I said, we need to protect the design like a baby. At least to the extent that we could.
This goes on to also show the non-negotiating nature of all the architects. They're not ready to sit down across the table and negotiate that what is good. I think a middle path would be somewhere to work within at the end of the day, there would be no project if there was no client.
That is true.
You are eventually working for the client, and every client has a certain budget, of course. Now, we have to choose whether we can deliver. And when we are only speaking about aesthetics, as long as you are in architecture, not compromising on the structural strength or the life cycle of a project, and in interiors on pure look, which can be, there's always an alternate material available in our palette, like Asian Paints has, come out with various ranges and stuff like that. So, do we start sitting on a high table and saying, no, this is the only way we can do? Because budget's extremely important in every project, I think. Every project has to have a good budget or an optimum budget. So, we are not talking about a low budget or a high budget, but we are talking about an optimum budget.
So,
Manishi,
there are ways to kind of do it in the sense of actually having, like, let's say, instead of using the, Indian stones or Indian materials in that sense, that are aesthetically proven over the period of time. And I think that's where my concept comes in. But, again, to each his own.
So again, my answer is going to be two-part. So if a developer comes to me and he says, I have less budget, I don't care, I'm going to take the project because that's good money for me. Like you said, good for the business. And if it's a residence or say a restaurant or a club where the client wants to only spend something which I feel is too less. Now my space and my time is limited if I'm doing say 10 projects in a span of a year or 2 years. And if that's the 11th project I can take versus another project where the budget is more, it's not that a good design can't be done in a lesser budget, but I enjoy working with a higher budget. So that's what I choose to do. And anyway, the aesthetics versus economics, there's no dance-off in the dance of aesthetics versus economics. They have to perform together. It has to be a tango. So if your business permits and if your aesthetic and architectural sense and the highway permits, then you take it on. But we choose, depending on how much we can take on our table. And we choose the higher budget one.
Prakhar, again, coming to you and calling you a young practice, do you think that you have the advantage of being able to operate with lesser costs rather than a studio which is a larger studio with overstaffing because of the need? When you have lean period, you may not need as many people. So do you optimize on, and both you and your wife are both architects who are working together, do you think you have the advantage of being lean as of now to be able to negotiate and I'm talking right now about the economics of running a studio, not a project, because at the end of the day, we also need to speak about the economics of a practice, because only when you can afford to take up a project and deliver to the best of your capabilities, then you will look at aesthetics. So do you think you have that advantage as of now?
I do feel, obviously, a young practice had that advantage, but frankly speaking, my wife takes such good care of these things that I don't indulge much in this. But I would like to answer your previous question that you asked about dropping a project if the budget is less. So I feel as an architect, we have the duty, and I agree with my fellow architects that we have to take it as a challenge. Because if we are the next generation architects, we have to showcase what can be done if we have some budget constraints. And architecture doesn't have to be boring if you are fighting with a certain budget. Plus, I feel we have had the opportunity to do some of the projects where we had really strict budget constraints, and we have been really happy with the results that have come out. So, I feel a project where you're struggling with the budget is an exercise in, finding cheaper alternatives, or maybe redefining the details that we are going to be used, and substituting some of the materials in the project. And if we can achieve good results with that, it's only going to, set an exemplar for the future projects. And projects where you have good budget and we have a free hand, it's an exercise in exploring all the materials and all the new technologies we can experience and explore. So both of them, I feel it's a good experience doing both kind of projects. And for the firm and how it's run, I think you'll have a better dialogue with my wife.
Priyanka, does it ever happen that just because you've got good budget, you start straight away jumping to an expensive material?
Not at all.
And that's where the design takes a backseat, but the material comes into play?
No, never.
Never?
Never. I think it's more about the client experience, especially because we just don't do houses. We end up doing a lot of experience centers, we do retail, we do F&B, we're also doing like offices now. So it's always about the experience first, and then the materials. And I think that's the first place where we sort of end up cutting cost as well. At the BOQ stage, if you feel like it's too expensive, can't do veneer, do laminate, right? So I think that's why we manage cost as well towards the end of the project.
So if you were to do a camellias, will you put Jaisalmer stone on the floor?
It's a nice tone.
So that's where I feel the tool immediately changes when you have a budget. You start putting.
See, it doesn't matter if the client has a budget and then they say, listen, we can't use. Actually, I met with someone recently who's converting this camellias apartment into like a one-bedroom space, no false ceiling, all open ducting, just like I want it that way. And then he'll enjoy the space that way. So it's really on him. It's black granite on the floor. Why not?
Yeah. So again. Delving further deeper into this, Meetu, you spoke about the life cycle of a project. How much does materiality play a role in that? Because economics is directly related to materiality also. And you're looking at the kind of projects you're doing, multi-story housing for Delhi government, in that sense, that there is, as I said, that it's a plinth area rate and everything. How much of material tweaking do you do to maintain that life cycle of that project?
So interestingly, for these large-scale projects, and especially both for builders and for government both, we do both bodies of work. For us, the cost of the project is not just the interior materials. It's from foundation to the fan, I would say. It's from concept to completion. And when we look at the cost of the project, it's each and every element, whether the structural system, whether it's going to be modular, aluminum formwork, precast, or cast in situ. There are so many aspects to the cost of the project, the economics of the project. So we try and create a balance at the day one itself, so that by the time the project is finished and it's time to put in money in the finishing, which is what is actually seen by the eye, which is what governs the experience per se, we are not left with oh my God, what should we do now? So yes, we do need to tweak into the materiality, but we make sure that we give enough cushion from day one itself, so that when the finishing stage comes in, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are here who agree with me that, in these projects, the major cost cutting starts happening towards the end. नहीं, इतना महंगा पत्थर नहीं लगाना, tile लगा लेते हैं, other aspects.
So the entire BOQ is made, right?
Sorry?
In the government project, the BOQ is made right in the beginning, no?
PAR is made, the BOQs come in later. So that's where the game lies. So we have to keep enough cushion for the final BOQ stage, and we make sure we also specify each and every material in the beginning stage itself and keep enough margins so that the contractor doesn't have to do cost cutting at the end. So I would say there are times when we do also have to change the materials, both for, let's say, facade or the interior materials, but then we make sure that, it doesn't like really deviate from the design intent unless and until it is really in a dire state, which has happened once or twice. I would not say it doesn't happen, but like I said earlier also, I'm learning and trying to make the best of my learnings in the whole process.
I wouldn't do justice to the panel if I didn't speak about the buzzword today, which is sustainability, which is I don't want to say it, but yeah, whatever. I thought that architects are supposed to have sustainability in their DNA, but this whole thing about having ratings and everything, and all architects I see go overboard in trying to achieve that rating without actually putting it in their initial design itself, Some of you do large architectural projects, and Amit, somebody like you who's doing industrial, housing and everything. Sustainable construction should have been in your DNA. How many of you actually practice that?
Isn't it the biggest fad that you can ever talk about? I mean, honestly speaking, I just saw a documentary which actually had a concrete house and they were mud plastering over it, saying that it's a sustainable practice. So I think that's the new latest definition of actually sustainable architecture, as they say it. I think it's in today's time, honestly, it's not possible given the sort of circumstances or the climate change that we're going through, be it in Delhi for that matter. I think how can you actually have a mud house going through or XYZ? I mean, the definition of sustainable can change and vary, and it can have a lot of dimensions and meanings to it. Maybe sort of using some X, Y material in a proper manner might sort of resolve the problem of a sustainable manner of constructing anything, but I think it is a fad, and I think it will remain a fad for the next generation as well. I think, we might be...
Why would you call it a fad? I thought that's what I said, that
I might not lie.
Isn't it supposed to be part of your DNA when you're designing your homes that you're doing? Don't you think that you can dim the effect? I know that it comes with a certain orientation. It comes, if it's a row housing, it comes with walls on both the sides.
Of course.
You can't have access to light and sunlight. But don't you think a design still can be done economically for again the life cycle of that project, for the operating cost, the OPEX of that home can be managed better by a good design?
Of course. Again, we'll reiterate the fact that what is the definition of sustainability in a construction or a house that you're looking at? If you design it in a way that it's not facing, or let's say, the heat, you're not getting any heat gains for that matter, or XYZ, you don't need artificial lighting, or the loading on the HVAC systems are not more. So is that sustainable for you? I think it's a given, it's a prerequisite in today's time. So
certainly in the OPEX cost, that is true, get factored in. Yeah. So I think a sensible design, when we are saying that economically designing, aesthetically designing, and that's the marriage that I'm talking about.
Yeah, if you marry that with aesthetics, I think that is where you win as an architect. I think that's exactly and precisely why a client hires an architect for, I think.
But do you manage that? Do you deliver that?
Of course. Why not?
Oh, that's lovely.
No, I'm joking, guys. Majorly, mostly 90% we do manage to, but then there are cases, there are anomalies where, there are cases that it just doesn't happen, and then I think we have to live with it, to be really honest.
So, you started with Sanjay. Concrete towers, 100% concrete construction is what's happening these days. So you can't go sustainable there. But like you said, in the planning, yes, of course, when we design, we look at how the windows are placed, even if it's a 40 floors tower. We see if there's cross ventilation that's possible, if there's enough natural light that every room will get. That's something that we as architects are supposed to have in our DNA, and that's why clients hire us, not just for the aesthetics, but basic living standards that we can give to people, which is now called sustainability, actually. So that's in architecture. Having said that, we very recently met a client. It's a huge Indian corporate company, and we are doing a project for them in Jodhpur. It's a commercial building, southwest facing facade. And we tried and we tried and we tried, but they would not understand the sustainable factors, and they're doing a glass box. To which we have told them, don't put our name on the door. Don't tell anybody we've done the project. Because I don't want to be, because when we as architects look at work, we say, ye kya soch raha tha ye banate hue? But we rarely remember it's a lot of times you're being handheld by the client where they say, because doing a glass facade in Jodhpur is suicidal. That's where we in the middle once also thought, let's tell the client we don't want to work on this project.
Next time I see your Instagram with that Jodhpur project, then I'll hold you responsible for having bluffed us all. Yeah.
I'd like to add one more dimension to this discussion of sustainability, because sustainability itself has been very economically portrayed in the whole business of architecture now.
Why would you?
I'll tell you this.
Listen, guys, just because you're Gen X, you can't road roll me. I'm telling you, sustainability has to be in your DNA. How can you deny that?
No,
and
it
also,
is there.
it helps you to achieve the economics, both at the operational cost and both also at the cost of when you are doing the construction. Both the time. Sustainability also would mean that you're not getting long lead items. Your procurement is local procurement. So that, that is also economics. I think that's the economics of construction.
Right, but then see, for just like larger picture, right? So over here, don't import stuff, source locally. A, don't import marble, source locally. B, sorted. But apart from that, look at like interior sites specifically. The amount of malba we end up producing on our sites, single-use plastics, everything that's coming to site, our doors are packed in, first in cardboard, then in paper, and then in like a layer of plastic. That all goes to waste. But like 90 to 100 trolleys of waste that goes from our site. What about that? How do you be sustainable in that sort of realm?
So that's why don't use long lead items.
It's not about, even if I
Sanchit
use like
is
a
the
short
same.
lead
expensive
item, I
items.
use a door that's being made in Chhatarpur. You get it on site, it's going to go to waste. All the
So I've
packages.
just done a
hire a
project
carpenter,
where
start-
actually I've used this brick project where we have just used Bikaner ki mitti ki bricks, where we've actually used it, but then of course it's on a concrete structure. But the thing is that if it you throw the water or there is disintegration of the brick, it turns into mud, right? Of course, again, people will say it's sustainable and all. I know it's not, right? Again, to kind of answer to your question that, am I being true to myself? There are different, if you go through the studies of Malba, there's this company called Malba Project. There is actually, there are different bricks that are coming through that are made out of debris, which actually they are mixing with the composite plastic materials, the micro materials, and kind of establishing a sort of a strong network of bricks. So I think there are cases where, I'm looking forward to and actually the material exploration of where the bricks are made out of Malba and houses are constructed out of the Malba instead of having a load-bearing structure. Why not make it with Malba that is there? Or when you see houses being constructed or broken down, they will actually end up using the bricks of the old house rather than the new bricks. What is the reason why? So again, these are also sustainable practices in their own way, but is that sustainable? That's like fraction percentage of the whole construction. So I think I again reiterate, it's a fact.
बूंद से गड्ढा भरता है तो शुरू तो करो. You need to
I
start
think
somewhere.
all of us here would agree that we'll do whatever we can to sort of be
we all
sustainable
try.
in any which way we can. That could be like reducing like the number of lights in the house to make it more sustainable. So bijli ka bill is lesser. It's like having lesser load on your HVAC systems, doing all of that. But then we really can't deny the fact that even though we try to move in this direction, the progress towards that will be extremely slow, considering that not all of us or our clients really care that much about the environment, unfortunately.
All I was trying to do was economics versus aesthetics. I was trying to blend them together to be able to say that, no, we can work aesthetically with economical outcome or use economics to get an aesthetic outcome. So let's get together on that. Come on, push to bolo.
I feel,
We'll do that.
I feel this is what sustainability does. As you said, that sustainability has to be built into our DNA. Obviously, the kind of things that she mentioned right now, that, okay, use locally sourced materials, or you said, okay, there are some things she said about keeping optimum window openings. And then Sanchit said, sustainability, I find it to be a bit of a fad. Obviously, I thought that when you were touching on the topic of sustainability, and he used a better word than, yeah, biggest fad. Because I feel it's such a wide topic, sustainability. You have a completely different understanding of it, because when you studied architecture, there were different things that were being talked about. And we have just seen so much of it. And it's like everywhere. Every decision you take. Just now she mentioned about the selection of lights and everything. From first step that we take towards the construction of a building to the end, now, we cannot be true everywhere. So we just have to look at smart solutions. And obviously all these ratings, we don't abide by them when we are doing construction, but we just, try to ensure that we are not putting extra pressure on the environment or anything like that. So this is how I think we should see sustainability. It's a practice that architects get, but people have been, just talking so much about it, and they have just glorified it so much that I don't feel going through that process is necessarily sustainable.
Also, it's very sustainable. You see vinyl cladding all around you. It's sustainable.
Can I have a little quiet at the back, please?
Sustainable.
Can we just have your attention here, or please step out of this hall?
So I truly agree with your statement that sustainability and I would say good design principles should be built into our DNA. And I feel, there are a lot of active strategies to reduce maybe electrical consumption, etc. But fundamentally, while we are preparing the concept design, if we, just try to integrate the first principles of architecture, passively the building can be, inherently made sustainable to a great extent. Then whatever else comes on superficially, that is something else. But then when we approach any specific design, I think we should fundamentally, just be conscious of that fact. Obviously, there are n number of different constraints to handle, aesthetics being one of them. But then if at all we are slightly conscious about this fact that yes, the building should function in a certain manner, then we will definitely create something that is passively, that is passive design.
Can I add to this? I totally agree with all the architects that as a forum, we all agree that we are trying to be our best to be sustainable. But sustainability also started making sense when economics was added to the factor. It's only when the builders started getting higher FAR or tax rebates, or hotel operators starting getting more rebates on sustainability, is only when everybody started seeing an economic sense to it. And I think we as architects need to also educate our client in terms of what benefit are they going to get out of integrating sustainable solutions, right from the construction stage, how to reduce the malba on the site, or what kind of lighting fixtures to use, to what kind of interior materials to use. It's only through educating our clients or our contractors in the best practices is when there will be a real acceptability to it.
Ritu, I was looking at sustainability in design, as a design, not as a material. That is given, that's like I also said that all those ratings, because the material you use, the light that you put and everything else is a humbug. I agree there. But I'm talking about, when you want to bring in economics, and economics of being able to create aesthetically, that is what I meant when I said DNA of an architect is to design sustainably, a sustainable building which works better in terms of resources, in terms of operational costs once we build it.
That we are all doing.
So we all agree on that.
Yeah,
so I think there is a middle path here, that the middle path says that we can, all of us are heroes here who can actually build aesthetically, and we're making a point for ourselves here in the forum that all of us are conscious of the fact that architecture remains an experience. It's not just a picture, and that experience is through all kinds of intervention that we put in, economically, optimizing the costs, optimizing spaces. Also, I think the design is also about the spaces that you are creating. If you are going to be a megalomaniac and you are trying to create without the usage being put properly, I think that's also a way of doing that. I know when you do projects which are for builders or for the government, there is a space program also right in the beginning. But whereas when you're doing a farmhouse, Priyanka, maybe, then you're free to, you say, no, I want a 20 feet high ceiling. I see some people with 20 feet high ceiling, and you create that. Is there a need for that, or it's your aesthetic completely you're trying to do that because opulence is the way?
It depends on the client also. I think that height also looks great. You know, people aspire for that sort of height because it looks luxurious and more as opposed to like just putting in baccarat chandelier, for example. It would be nice, but I do understand that maintaining that would be extremely difficult, especially in India, because you do have a lot of spider webs and all of that. So maintaining that at that height would be extremely difficult. In my spaces specifically, I try not to go above 12 feet height. And then if you have a double-heighted area, I think just that would be nice. That bedrooms and all don't have to be that high.
So where you can't change the bulb of a 20 feet high ceiling, you know.
Lekar aao CD change karo.
Good. So, everybody is sticking to their point. Everybody is saying that, no, we build the way we build. And I think that's also a great sign. And that's the zeal and the enthusiasm of the Gen Next who like to stick to what the way they operate. And I think the panel next where the seniors are coming, it'll be a great, I think they're listening in. And there is some takeaway from these young guys of as to. Char pucho sir aap.
I am Ashok Goyal, I am a student of architecture. ये जो यंग लोग बैठे हैं इससे मैं कुछ सीखने की कोशिश कर रहा था. जब एस्थेटिक्स की बात करते हैं, अगर हम फंक्शनल एस्थेटिक्स की बात करें तो इकोनॉमिक्स का मसला हल हो जाता है. अगर 300 रुपये फुट का पत्थर ही लगाना है तो मैं और आप क्या कर रहे हैं? अगर मैं 50 रुपये के पत्थर में एस्थेटिक्स नहीं ला सकता तो लानत है मेरे ऊपर.
I think सर ये बात नहीं थी. बात यही है कि eventually you're building for a client. And if you were to talk about, like, there are different set of people who are working in different kind of work.
No, I mean, I can answer that question for you if you want.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Actually, that's a great point, actually. It's the difference between an Italian or an Indian stone, right? That's the cost difference, right? So if you can use the Indian stone in the right manner, in the right finish, for the right color or the cause, whatever you want, and if aesthetically it kind of suits your space, you can do it as an architect, which actually answers the question for functional aesthetics versus economics and, in terms of the architecture of the space. It can very well be done. ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं हो सकता, हो सकता है.
But this is also a misnomer that Indian stone is cheap, If you
no, I mean, there's no...
enough Indian stone is more expensive than Italian stone,
I mean, no, I might not agree on that, There are other cases of stone. There are... the sad part is that we as architects now are exploring the other side of the stones rather than our side. If you see the Indian stone collection, we just started digging on those, right? There's a huge well of it. So, I think we can definitely look into that.
Ashok, to answer your question, the thing is,
if
it is
that
also
answers your
aspiration, So,
Vivek sir, I would also like to add to it. So, sir, you're absolutely right. When we start a project, the first thing that we do is the spatial planning and the organization. But then it also depends on the brief of the client, what kind of experience they are trying to create. Okay, we have done our work with the spatial planning and we have all the spaces and the volumes that we needed. But then sometimes because of the brief of the project also, we have to delve into different kind of materials that are not available at a local level. So it is also because of the client's aspiration sometimes that we have to go with the expensive material. And if we could do it in a cheaper material and the client aspires for that, we are more than happy to do it.
Sir, everybody's aspiration, एक आदमी ने एक सफेद रंग का घर सारी उम्र सोचा है कि मेरा घर एक सफेद रंग का अच्छा मार्बल का घर होगा. As an architect, because of the client, so I think it doesn't leave us too much of maneuverability to negotiate on that. That's one point. The other is when we were talking to Meetu and Manishi and others who are doing projects which are government projects, where everything is already given or the plinth area rates are given. There they choose between obviously the cheaper stone, and I think they use, in fact, even using stone.
You're making it sound like all the government projects are cheap. I mean,
oh, sorry. Now I have to come.
My friend Sanjay is here.
So Meetu is also doing a lot of hospitality projects, and that's where she compensates for all the frustration that she has of using the local
it's not like government projects are cheap. It's a myth actually. Government projects actually give you the liberty to think about non-conventional things and create something out of the box for people. And that's where, it really gives us an opportunity to think about materials, because, every material has a cost per square feet, and every 5 rupee change, like you were saying, can, impact the project.
Why do all of them look the same?
Sorry?
Then? At the end of the day, why do all of them look the same?
I mean, it's beauty lies in the eyes of beholder, honestly. So if you think they all look the same, I can't help it. But I just feel that, there's a lot of potential in government projects also to put in the right kind of materials, expensive at the right place, and not just really give a very uniform look to the entire project. So we have to do a very mix and match, like experientially what is suitable for what area. And that's how the selection should be done. I mean,
We are lucky that we have Sanjay Singh sitting here from RCOP. He's also doing a lot of government projects where similar kind of a thing is happening. Projects are being experiential. Your recent project at Pragati Maidan, I'm sure that you worked with a lot of constraints, time being one of the biggest. And so how did you maneuver through that? I mean, you don't have to be here to be able to give that yeah.
So I think, hi, and thanks for giving me the stage. So let me answer it in two parts. I think what Meetu said is absolutely right. And I think the government projects, all of them don't look the same. I think you have to see more government projects. Okay. So I think one of the big differentiation that is there between the government projects that are happening now, which are large public infrastructure projects, and the private projects that our friends here are, talking about. You do not come under the pressures of cost cutting at a later date, right? So whatever you do, you're doing it when you're on the drawing board, your PAR cost gets approved, and you're home free. Once it gets tendered out, it is not that we've run out of budget, so, can we look at something else? Doesn't work like that. So, that pressure is taken off. So far as the, time pressures are concerned, now that's a tight walk, And the biggest issue is, how do you make sure that in this era of EPC projects, how do you ensure your design intent is correctly captured in your tender document so that you are able to be a custodian of it and, sort of protect it? I think beyond the tender, the time management is not that difficult. You can work around it because you get enough time. Our construction agencies give you enough time for you to, sort of detail out your design and stuff like that. It's the challenge that you have to overcome at the time of the initial concept and schematic design. That's where, what we did, and we were given just about 4 months, to be able to get a design intent, captured correctly in your document, because that is going to define whether the project will get built the way you conceived it or not, is going to depend on your tender document. So what we did was, besides the drawings, we also made use of a lot of sketches, a lot of stock shot materials, library, stock shots, texts, design briefs. I wrote a vision document which protected us with respect to our design, right? So if you can maneuver that, then I think you have a good project going. If you cannot, then you have an issue at hand.
So you navigated it well, basically. So also, because the main thing was about talking about the economics. So when you were given a brief and the EPC project where you had the cost laid down to the last brick,
right,
right in the beginning.
Right.
There are, all government projects are known for cost overruns. How do you control that, so that your aesthetics, which you intended right on day one, versus
Right.
the budget that was given to you is taken care of?
So, Vivek, I think there are 3 sort of very clear stages to it. The first stage is when the government has already conceived a project, they've thought about a project, and they've put a cost to it, right? And, that's when you are not there. So there's very little that you can do about it. The second stage is when we come in, right? And when you come in, then there's a fine balance of, how much you can sell your design, right? If you can sell your design well, I can tell you with conviction that I've been able to, get extra budget from the government at the stage 2. We've been able to do that. It happened at case of Pragati Maidan. It has happened in case of other, buildings which are iconic in their own right, right? And you could, take it to the right forum and convince them that, look, if you are looking at a building which is going to create a signature on the fabric of the city, you have to spend this much more money. More times than not, one has been successful, right? The third stage is, where it starts getting messy, which is during the execution, right? And I think this, mode of EPC that has come in, that sort of helps you in a manner to control your costs, okay? Because if, like again I said, if you are able to, create enough safeguards with respect to your design intent, even without giving the real design, I think, there is a case for you to be able to contain the costs. The costs are going to go up, all right, because there are time delays during execution, during construction and all kind of things. But can you control it within a acceptable range? That's I think the mantra.
So I think the point that I take from what Sanjay said is selling your design, not selling your material. When you're selling your design, it is only about design. There is no material that you're selling. I hope that all of us make it an endeavor to sell a good design and not sell a good material. I think therein lies the balance of economics versus a good aesthetically designed thing. We as architects and designers, our primary responsibility is to create good design and not showcase materials in our projects. I think materials are a tool that we have, but that tool can be always replaced with another material. You will still be building a building maybe with stone or brick or AAC blocks, or you'll be putting stone in maybe Italian or Indian. You'll be using wood or UPVC windows. But your design is what should be the guiding mantra for creating good architecture and good design. Because in this country, unfortunately, good design is a privilege. Good design does not reach to the masses. Like Sanchit, you said, only 5% of people can even afford to have good design. 5% of people can get to sleep on a proper ergonomically designed chair or a bed. So I think therein also a little responsibility that the architects have is to create a good public spaces, work on public spaces where we can educate people to at least feel what is a good design. In this country, we don't even have a good bus stop. We don't have a well-designed bus stop. And that can be done. It's normally a college problem, in a college design problem, but it doesn't get replicated ever. And all the emphasis in college is about doing it economically. So I think, for me, again, very emphatically, good design is what should be our product, not good material. I think if we are running out of time, last word from each one of you, starting with Sanchit.
I think you kind of summed it up pretty well in the sense that, I think good design is a privilege. And I think that there is a sense of responsibility that we have. And I think with all due respect to all the opinions that have been shared out here, I think there is a cause that we have, and there is a cause that we have to kind of look forward to. And I think that the only best we can do is by having our own sort of a strong opinion while going ahead. So yeah, I think that's precisely what you just mentioned out here. I think I agree with that.
I agree too. And like I mentioned before as well, never about the material, always about the spaces. And yeah, because I think we'll all just try to be more sustainable with how we sort of design the spaces, and we'll take it from there.
Prakhar?
I feel this was more like a conversation where everybody agreed on all the points instead of a debate. But yes, I feel we have a responsibility, as Sanchit also mentioned, that I know myself as a kid, I have been growing up complaining about why doesn't my country look as good as when we go to vacations, our parents, or Europe or US. So we have the responsibility now to define that. And when we are working with low-cost architecture or projects, we have to make it a responsibility that we are able to deliver good-looking projects, as Sir said, that it has to be about the experience, even if you're using a 50 rupee square foot stone. So yes, we can do that, and we have to do that. I feel, as Sanjit mentioned, only 5% of people in India are able to afford good design. I don't think that's the case. People can afford good designs, they just cannot afford good designers.
So I would like to reiterate what I mentioned previously, that an aesthetic design can definitely be economical, and an economical design can also be very aesthetic.
I somehow tend to disagree on the 5% part, because I feel design, like I said, the beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. A slum dweller takes equal pride and and a sense of belonging in their little shanty, which has been beautifully decorated by them with whatever little money they have. It's not just a privilege. Good design is something that that is evolving. And we, as the exposure grows, we are all learning. And I'm very blessed and privileged to be a part of a group of architects who are working in the public realm and really trying to do best in whatever fashion we can do. And like my friends also say that, you know, aesthetics and economics are actually go hand in hand. It's not like it's either or. There has to be a good marriage between the two. And yes, I think we have a lot on our shoulders, and thanks for getting us together to kind of fight about it or talk about it. It's good to hear other people's perspectives as well. Thank you.
Manishi.
So, fortunately or unfortunately, barring the government and the builder projects, residential clients hardly know what the economics of a project should be when they reach an architect. So, it's our job to maneuver, to take them through the whole process, educate them what's good for them, what's not, and understand what are the must-haves and what are the good-to-haves, and then get the economics and the aesthetics to dance together.
So guys, summing it up, if you heard the tone from brash to responsible, then you can clap for me because I thought that I did that. But otherwise, yeah, it's wonderful to hear these guys. They're amazing. You know, the conviction with which their practices are, it's an eye-opener for all of us. And I wish them all the best. Thank you guys. Thank you really for being there. Yeah.
Okay, so before the picture, I would request for Indrajit Saoji of ITP Group, Indrajit, Himanshu Biala of Jindal Steel and Power, and Ganesh Prabhu, Head Specifications from Hafele, on stage for the felicitation, please. Amit Murao. A huge round of applause, please. Manishi Agarwal. Mitu Mathur. Prakhar Jain. Priyanka Singh. Sanchit Arora. One group photograph, please. Let us have a look at our brand Hafele.
Everyone needs a place they can call a home, a space they can withdraw into, to create cozy memories, to power up for the hustle that awaits. When your home can offer so much, it deserves much more. It's time to recreate that corner, the one you create memories in. It's time to reinvent the time you spend when you power up for the hustle that awaits. It's time to reimagine your homes today. The one place you will call your own forever. Hey fella, let's reimagine.
I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker for the evening. He is founding principal at Studio Lotus, a multidisciplinary Aga Khan Award-nominated practice that aims to craft spaces addressing the emerging future of work, leisure, and living. The practice's work is rooted in conscious design, an approach that celebrates local resources, cultural influences, keen attention to detail, and an inclusive process that seeks to bring out the best in every stakeholder. He is known for award-winning projects for the Ras Group of Hotels, the Krushi Bhavan in Odisha, and work at the Godrej Trees project in Vikhroli, Mumbai. His ongoing projects include Visitor Center within Jodhpur's Mehrangarh Fort Precinct, the new Royal Enfield's headquarters in Chennai, the headquarters of the Biju Janata Dal BJD in Bhubaneswar, and several hospitality commissions, including those for the Taj and Oberoi Group of Hotels Pan-India. His role is largely studio-focused, leading design processes that direct the trajectory of projects. He is deeply involved with the ongoing assessing benchmarks of innovation and sustainability for the studio's work, including aspects related to thermal comfort and localization of material and process. He is a custodian of the guiding values that have served as a cornerstone for the practice since its inception, and personally involved in leadership development for the studio's team. Ambrish has lectured extensively at global design forums and with universities such as RWTH Aachen University in Germany and Rice University in Texas, and was on the super jury at the 2020 Design Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the keynote speaker of Delhi Edition Design Debate, Ambrish Arora. Ambrish, sir.
Good evening, all. It's nice to see some familiar faces in here. Can I get some water, please? Thank you. Both. The first part, which is the more important part of my presentation, I want to give everyone the recipe for happiness. I have my lovely wife here, Shabnam, with my mother-in-law. And this is something I've learned very early in life. For those of you who are not married, boys and girls, you can replace that with a husband. Now that's the ground that's been set. I'd like to share a story. Some of you might have heard it. I share it repeatedly in most of my presentations because it's something that reminds me why I do what I do. And there's a story of a priest. And this priest is walking along a mountainside. And as he's walking along the mountainside, he sees this guy hauling big rocks up the hill, and he's cursing. And he's giving all the choicest profanities and saying, when do I get done with this, etc., etc. And the priest asks him, what are you doing? And why are you so unhappy? And he says, you idiot, can't you see? I'm hauling rocks, these huge rocks up the mountain. And he says, what a stupid question. You know, obviously you'll be unhappy. If I had to do that, I would be. So he goes a little further, and there is another guy, and he's hauling even bigger rocks. But he's really calm and collected. And he asks him, what are you doing? And he says, I'm hauling rocks because I need to make a living for my family. So I'm making a living for my family. And he said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And he moves on, and he sees another guy, and he's hauling massive rocks, and he's running up the mountain and chucking them, running down, can't get enough of it. And he says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm building a temple for my master. I think that's what really reminds us of thinking about why do we do what we do. And I think that's something that is really important for us to zoom out and look at. In the rut of things, we assume we know why we are doing what we are doing because of the choices we made in the past. What are the questions we continue to ask of ourselves? What guides our practice and creates meaning for us ongoingly? Because what created meaning for us years ago maybe does not create meaning for us today. And I think I'm going to try and share what are the values we have over time built for ourselves that give us meaning. And we are a medium-sized practice. We are about 100 people. And we like to believe that we try and run without hierarchy. We try and create teams that are aligned to certain values. So these are some of the values we really look at. So doing more with less, trying to be futuristic, but with appropriate means. We don't need to go high-tech. I think especially in a country like ours, do we have means that are passive? I think Amit, you spoke about being passive as a means. Can we adapt and reuse buildings much more than we do? So we do adapt buildings that we love. We adapt buildings that are historic. But is there a case for when a client comes to us, say, I want to bring this structure down, can we stop and say, do we really need to bring it down? Can we adapt it? Can we reuse it? How do we design buildings that endure? How do they stand the test of time? How do we create buildings that people love and want to retain and use? I think one important part, again in line with what some people said, that by nature, designers are hired by the top strata of society. That's a given in India especially, and even globally. So can we create luxury that can be aspirational, that then trickles down and creates desires and aspirations that are responsible? So some of the, when we had talks about economy, I think economy is not just the rupee value. I think the economy is the cost to the planet, the cost to our culture, the cost to our society. And just because it doesn't have a rupee value, it doesn't mean it's not important to measure. And that's something that we need to be conscious of. And contemporizing craft. I think that's something that is rare and unique to our country. And craft, again, to me, doesn't mean high-end artisanal work. It is the welder, the bricklayer, the mason. We still build by hand. A large proportion of our country uses the hand to construct. Can we integrate that in our mainstream, larger scale projects? And that's something that we continue to look at as the scale of our projects is growing. We try and see what is the value that the hand can add, which a machine cannot, because that too is our responsibility. So if we go deeper, we really look at what is the ecosystem we are working within. So there are all these people who can contribute and do contribute to the project, and if we stay conscious, and that's the key word, I don't think there are solutions, I think there are constraints all the time. I think the key thing is continuing to stay conscious of the various lenses that need to be looked at when we design. So what is sustainability? Is the environmental context? Is the socio-cultural context? Is the livelihood context? Beauty is a context. The role of culture is a context. All of that is context. And as we go through our projects, can we hold a lens up and say, look, am I addressing each of these? Am I looking at aspects that otherwise I would have missed in the heat of the moment, in the pressures of the client, in the pressures of the project? So one of the things we have tried to do over time is, in order to get the best out of people, how do you do it, right? So in college, I haven't been to architecture school, so I don't know, but from whatever I know, a lot of modernist architecture is where the architect is the author of the design, and his role is to make sure that teams come together to deliver the end product, which looks a certain way. And we pride ourselves, very often we show renders, and then we show the final product, and our pride is in how close is the render to the final product, right? And there you are controlling the entire process. But how much opportunity does it give for others to contribute in that process? And in this process, always the end will be greater than the means, right? So the process becomes secondary to deliver the end. What we are trying to build as a process within the studio and the work we do is an evolutionary model that allows different stakeholders to inform the project as the project is moving along. So we do crazy things like when we present a facade, we present the idea of a facade and we tell the client, this is not what your building is going to look like. This is an idea of the factors that will determine how your building looks like, and it really throws clients off. It really bothers them. But we also explain to them why we are doing that, because today when we start the project, we don't have enough information. We don't have enough knowledge. We are not know-it-all. There are factors that need to be informed as the project evolves that need to come in and govern the project. So can we build in a process that allows for those factors to come in and incrementally improve the project at each stage? And this, we find, is an inclusive process. It allows people to contribute ongoingly as and when they plug in. And it is iterative. So there is this idea of the concept, there is this idea of prototyping, there is a learning, because a prototype can succeed or it can fail. Do we create the time ongoingly alongside, do we plan for it, that for failure, and then iteration, and then at the point of success, you let it enter the project. So you allow for your process to inform the project at the right stage. So I'm just going to talk about two projects which were finished a while ago, but I don't have we've been working on larger scale projects which we haven't finished yet, so I can't share much on those. So some of you might have seen these projects, but I'm going to walk you through the process of these projects. In both these projects, we had a brilliant set of collaborators who are not here presenting with me. Manjunath from Bangalore for structure, Akshay Kaul for landscape, Buildcraft India are contractors for both the projects and finishing, and Mangrove Collective for furniture. The first project has been a journey of watching nature heal the land as much as building a home. Situated between Bhimtal and Mukteshwar in the Kumaon region of Uttarakhand, the site is at a height of 2,000 meters above sea level. The site rises through an elevation of 400 meters over an incline of 1 kilometer, with slopes varying from 25 to 40 degrees. We all know how the hills around Delhi have become an attractive destination for a growing market of second homes, which has led to rampant insensitive construction by private developers looking to make a quick buck, made worse by lack of building code in rural areas. The region has abundant rainfall, but the breakdown of old rainwater catchment systems and water becoming a commodity has led to a scarcity of water, destabilization of slopes and destruction of green cover, making it increasingly prone to landslides and floods. So when our client approached us with the idea of doing a luxury hillside development, we were very wary of taking it on, not wanting to be a part of the destruction of yet another hillside. However, over several meetings, we found our client, a nature lover, shared our values, and we jointly set together a mandate. Could we give back to the land as much as we took from it ecologically? Could we tread lightly on the ground in the way we build, in the way we treat the land, and perhaps even enrich the ecosystem? For the master planning exercise, we worked closely with Akshay Kaul. We started with the analysis of the slopes, the surface drainage patterns, and vegetation, the intersection of which showed us the least ecologically disruptive zones for construction and infrastructure hubs. Following through with a road network that worked in sync with the terrain, this generated a master plan with less than 70 homes to be built over the next several years, spread over 88 acres of land, giving us less than 5% ground coverage on site. Keeping the construction light and sparse, we planned shared community spaces, forests and amenities, rather than large private spaces, and have amortized the cost of these public spaces amongst the residents of the private villas. We created a goal to be net surplus on our water supply requirements through rainwater alone, a big problem in the hills otherwise, a first in the region. For the first 2 years, the only work that happened on site was ecological regeneration. To reduce surface runoff and minimize soil erosion, a network of dry stone masonry gully plugs was made. So far, 300 of these have been finished, and within just 3 seasons of rainfall, water levels in the shallow wells on site and even the villages downstream, outside our site, has gone up to levels not seen in the past 20 years. To prevent soil erosion and stabilize the land along steeper gradients, we adopted the use of bioengineering techniques such as brush layering, hydro-seeding, and bamboo crib walls. The site has been and continues to be reforested with thousands of native trees such as oak, rhododendron, and others, along with native shrubs and grasses. Infrastructure is being planned as a distributed hub-and-spoke network. Rainwater runoff from the roofs will be collected and supplied through a gravity-fed network of tanks with a capacity to hold 30 lakh liters of water when the site is built out. Wastewater is biologically treated and reused for flushing, gardening, and horticulture. The villa in the woods, which I'll show now, is the first home on the site within a clearing of oak trees with a slope of 40 degrees, almost unbuildable by traditional methods. The 450 square foot villa was designed to be built in a manner so that both the process of construction and the end product have minimal impact on the terrain, with no trees being cut and minimal cut and fill of the slope retaining the terrain. The framework conceptualized by the very clever Manjunath mimics the structure of the trees, with a narrow base that lightens and spreads as it moves up. Built over 3 levels to reduce the footprint and maximize views, the villa has been stilted off the ground to allow for the natural flow of water under the home. Localized stepped foundations along the slope allow for minimal excavation. To avoid the use of heavy machinery which would damage the slopes and trees, so no cranes, the structure is designed as a basket-like weave of lightweight steel tubes of 100 mm that use composite strength of this lattice to meet the codal requirements. Each steel member can be manually carried by 3 to 4 people with pulleys, avoiding the use of heavy cranes. Thin deck slabs are welded to the framework as a structural membrane and also serve as scaffolding during the process of construction. The gap in the weave allows for a clean movement of surfaces to maximize internal heights. The home is designed to achieve European house passive standards, the first of its kind in the region. Passive design techniques address aspects of daylight, solar heat gain, natural ventilation, and thermal comfort. We have avoided the use of cement and kept wet work to a minimum. The building skill is a highly insulated, multi-layered dry construction to achieve the desired U values to meet the standards, to regulate temperature and prevent heat loss. The result is that the home consumes less than 50% of the energy required to keep residents warm indoors through the winter compared to a traditional stone hill house. The material palette builds on the vocabulary of the Kumaoni vernacular. Forest-certified timber and locally sourced slate shingles weave through the metal structure to form an external rain screen. The interiors are a combination of the client's classic furniture pieces from the earlier house with new pieces that build a narrative through textiles, found objects, and art and craft. This is integrated within the relatively contemporary expression of the shell into a warm, eclectic palette. The ramped boardwalk leads through the trees to the main door. Wood carving is a popular craft in Kumaoni culture, and local artisans handcrafted timber frames and the motif on the main door and panels inside. The entry level consists of a foyer, powder room, living and dining with north and south decks. The kitchen and utility on the west face are serviced by an independent entry and a service staircase. The door opens into a foyer. To the left is the staircase that connects to the upper and lower levels of the home, and an elevator to ensure universal accessibility, which is rare in the hills. The living room has 2 pockets of seating around a fireplace and seamlessly connects to a large semi-covered deck perched among the trees. The dining brings in the south sun through a glass conservatory that opens onto a south deck for outdoor dining. The upper level has a deck flanked by 2 master bedrooms and a den. The stairs open into the den with a fireplace that connects to and open to the sky deck, flanked on either side by bedrooms. Each of these have cantilevered bay windows that project into the trees. Skylights with retractable blinds in the room bring in winter sun and at night capture the intense starlit night skies as one lies in bed. The lower level has a guest suite, staff quarters, and a storage area. The staircase opens to the guest bedroom with its own deck. There is also a connection to a beautiful semi-covered landscape which leads down through a cobbled mountain path to a bamboo deck over one of the springs that has come alive post our ecological restoration. All the services of the home, the MEP room and pumps for the radiant underfloor heating system are tucked in below the floating south court deck, easily accessible from the service staircase. The house within the forest evokes the feeling of being perched among the trees. The upper level bedrooms and deck nestled within the tree cover, the living room at level 0, the guest bedroom at level -1 with the verandas nestled within the forest. The cantilevered projections bring the forest into the rooms. The east elevation of the house is gently perched on the slope, the south elevation of the house merging into the landscape, and the original intent of the house disappearing within the tree cover. Well, some music to make it. Thank you. Set between Jodhpur and Jaipur, this site is an oasis of 600 acres of regenerated desert forest, flanked by a 150-year-old rainwater check dam. This was built by a then ruler 150 years ago as an irrigation reservoir on the vast farmlands in his control. The third generation of his descendants have been running it as a wildlife camp since 2005. In the 90s, they stopped water-intensive farming on the land and allowed for it to be overtaken by native trees into a thriving forest and home to hundreds of species of migratory birds and wild animals, such as deer, boar, with the occasional leopard sighting. With temperatures in summer hitting over 45 degrees Celsius, the tented resort was seasonal from March to a stretch in October, and they were finding it difficult to sustain the property. They leased out the property to the new owners. They were the RAS group, whose goals were to increase the number of tents, upgrade them, upgrade the public spaces and amenities with the aim of doubling the revenues for the rooms. For this, they needed to turn the seasonal camp into a perennial one, and to do this in a way that retained the lightness of the built intervention and the connection to the site's unique setting. On the other side, we were dealing with temperatures varying from a burning 46 degrees in summer to a chilling 2 degrees in winter. On one hand, we had to keep in mind the fragile load-bearing capacity of the 150-year-old dam. And last but not the least, the business plan gave them only 10 months from commissioning us, including design to build. The old program had circulation and services already mapped out, and for minimum disruption, we built upon the existing scheme. The old structures had no privacy from the side of the circulation path on the dam or in the open areas in front, and only offered lake views, ignoring the lush sunset forest views. The services were buried underground and messy to maintain. Our primary move was to create a tent-like, air-conditioned, insulated pod on an elevated, lightweight deck with privacy screens segregating them, and a sunken circulation path on the west-facing forest on the edge of the dam. This allowed us to create stronger lines of sight to the views and run services off the ground without excavating the dam for easy maintenance. A skylight over the bed frames the intense star-studded night sky, heightened by the lack of ambient light in the remote forest. The structural system works on shallow, isolated piles made from hewn pipes rammed with lime and stone. Over this, a lightweight, custom-built metal structure gets bolted. Infill slabs of sandstone without screed are placed on this framework, and you get the finished floor with the slab in a single move. A double-skinned drywall thermally seals the structure, and an outer covering of heat-reflecting tensile fabric completes both the waterproofing and the tent narrative. The continuous line of structures, elevated off the ground, allows us to maximize the number of rooms to 16, increase insulation and privacy, and ease out running of services in a single unit across the site without having to excavate the sensitive topsoil of the dam. Needless to say, all rainwater is captured and wastewater is digested through biodigesters and recycled. The structures were built out within 5 months of hitting site. This is month 1, month 2, month 3, and month 5. The master plans show the entrance drop-off at number 2, arrival courtyard around a restored stepwell at number 5, the old stairs branching off at either side, boardwalk leading to the tents at 8, or at the open courtyard leading to the multifunctional restaurant cum bar cum reception at 6. This overlooks the pool and deck at 7. Number 13 is the kitchen and the back of house building, which overlooks the organic garden at 4, that serves the kitchen and also has an independent service entrance. I'll talk about the guest pods now in some detail. The plan of the pod strongly extends the indoor and outdoor connect with shaded verandas and open to sky gardens on both sides with dual sliding timber when the dual sliding timber doors are open, it makes for a seamless connect from sunrise over the lake to sunset over the forest. The inside-outside connect follows through into the bathrooms, which are linear slivers that capture the lake views from the bathtub and forest views from the WC. The sunken boardwalk leads up individual stairs to reveal a framed view of the lake. The interior scheme stays away from traditional Rajasthan heritage cliches and instead chooses to focus on indigenous techniques reinterpreted to bridge the forest and wildlife narrative through the idiom of a camping tent. We collaborated with a printmaker who reinterpreted classical Rajasthani miniature art forms and created a narrative around the indigenous flora and fauna. She took the the folk tradition of small woodblock printing and created large 68 feet wood blocks, which she carved manually printed the handloom fabrics with these motifs. This is further layered with hand-embroidered birds and animals found on the property. The narrative appears in woodwork details such as these hand-carved air conditioning unit covers. All the furniture is custom built in local oil-finished acacia timber and builds on the romance of handcrafted details of camping furniture of the old. These organic compositions come together to create happy surprises waiting to be discovered in different tents by guests as they use the space. Each tent is different in composition and colorway to create diverse moods for returning guests. This is the complete tent framing the forest view, the skylight over the bed, the lake view, and the lake facing veranda and bathtub. The colonnade of private decks as seen from the lake, and how they merge into the datum of the old dam with the public space framed at the extreme right corner. And this brings us to the public building called the Baradari, derived from the traditional 12-pillared pavilions of Rajasthan, which literally means a gathering space. Perched on the edge of the dam, the spaces follow a similar hierarchy as the tents, with wrap-around shaded verandas overlooking the lake to one side and the pool deck and the pool on the other. The inner space of the building is designed with double doors that fold into the immaculately detailed sandstone fins for 6 months a year, when the building is a naturally ventilated pavilion without the need for air conditioning. This building is a custom-built metal framework that holds 2 slabs of 3 meter tall, that's 10 feet tall, Chittar sandstone from 60 kilometers away, with insulation in between without the need for glue or cement. The roof is made with sandstone slabs with waterproofing in lime mortar sourced from neighboring quarries. All surfaces within the reach of the guests are hand-dressed stone, and all details, including air conditioning grills, are hand-cut at site by local artisans. This is how the building looks viewed from a boat on the lake. A view showing the connection of the veranda to the interior, the east-facing veranda, the south elevation and the courtyard, where sunbeds are set up in winter, and campfires in the evening as the building becomes a lantern. So that's the building at night. And so if you see, what you're seeing right now is these stone slabs are creating an air conditioning duct that wraps around the interior, while graphically, the interior scheme takes forward the forest narrative, which is hand chiseled. ये film play हो सकती है? I don't know, some of the films are not playing. Anyway, that's a video showing how he was doing the chiseling. Skip that. The multifunctional buffet cum island bar counter that anchors the space is hand-carved with flamingos that come to nest in the lake in winter. The west veranda overlooks the sundowner pool deck, with the pavilion lighting up over the pool as the sun sets. This is framed by the reclaimed stone rubble masonry from the site for the back-of-house building that connects below to the entrance experience, a traditional stepped well framing a small ancient shrine that houses the deity that guards the dam. To keep the camp alive and interactive, there are several elements built into the design that need to be maintained daily and weekly by women from the neighboring village as a ritual, such as the clay-lined courtyards, the lime powder decorations within these, and the clay and lime hand-painted signages for the room that need to be redone every few weeks. There's a small film capturing the experience. So I'm open to questions if anyone has any. We are done.
Amrish, thank you for doing this. When Vibhor told me that we need a keynote speaker, I just jumped at the idea of having you. Amrish is somebody whom I call the Buddha of our fraternity, and you could see the Zen-like work that he does. It's not just the work that he does, the way he runs his practice. I think that's a great example for all of us to follow, how he's nurtured the practice, how he's nurtured his associates, made them into partners, and still is able to maintain the calm despite the amazing body of work that you do. So my question is that, and this is also an example what I was talking in the earlier panel of every architect being able to build sustainably and build sustainably through using local material and the context being the foremost thing. I think you've woven all your projects so beautifully in that. So when you get, do you also, since we are on the topic of economics and aesthetics, do you also get a budget or you give the budget to the client?
I think what we've learned over time is to align on a budget. Sometimes the client gives a budget, sometimes we come back to the clients asking him, I'm sure this is common kind of knowledge. So all projects have just 3 variables and all 3 can't be held. So you have time, you have cost, and you have quality. And one of them has to be little flexible. So what you try and get a sense of early in the project is which is the variable the client is willing to play with a bit, right? So if it is cost driven, then are they willing to play with the time a little bit so you have more time to do something? Or if it's very time driven, then is quality something that they want something that's... So, what we try and do is there's a lot of prototyping and iteration in our projects. So we try and minimize that for projects that are really tight on time and cost, but still can produce a pretty decent project which we are proud of, but maybe is not pushing the envelope in terms of innovation. So I think, as Sanjay put it really well, I think it's a question of having that conversation early on and establishing trust and faith in the equation that I'm sitting on your side of the table, and I don't have an agenda except to give you a project that fulfills on your vision and dream. And if you align on that vision and dream, and you create, I think it was beautiful, you created a vision document, you create some kind of a common vision, and then you constantly stay in communication when something is getting stretched. So that's one thing we really stress on in the studio. We have a practice where every week or every fortnight, a communication goes out to all the clients, whether they ask for it or not, what's the status of the project. If we are running late on drawings, we call it out, we apologize, but we inform them. If there's a resource crunch, we inform them. If there's a change in design because of an error we made, we inform them before they discover it and we don't try and cover it up. We find it builds for a great amount of flexibility in your working with clients, and we are able to address budget, quality, time constraints. Somewhat, not always, but makes it slightly easier.
Sorry to interrupt. Sir, due to paucity of time, requesting you to take the Q&A offline.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Please stay back on the stage. I'm going to request Vibhor Srivastava of ITP Media and Anubhav Ghosh of a brand representative from Decor Pro by Asian Paints to please step on the stage for the felicitation, please. I'm going to request Mr. Himanshu Bilaya, Manager, Jindal Steel and Power, to introduce us to the brand.
A really good gathering for me. Actually, I belong to a totally different domain and it's really quite a good experience for me to know what happens, the kind of brainstorming that goes behind before the tender or the BOQ and all the things, the design of any project comes before us. This is a product that we have been offering for years in market. Jindal Panther TMT Rebar, the company organizational group It's coming under the OP Jindal Group. Just like Tata has the name of Tata Sons Group and a number of various companies, this OP Jindal Steel and Power, that is being chaired by Mr. Naveen Jindal, who has been former MP from Congress. Jindal Steel and Power has always been a part of Integrated Steel Plant Fraternity. It has been well mentioned in the JPC, the Joint Plant Committee. These are the three manufacturing units that we have in the eastern part of India, in Angul, Raigad and Patratu. Total quantum of the steel manufacturing that we have is 9 MTPA in totality in whole of nation, and if we combine the production in Oman, it reaches to 11 MTPA. We are not only dealing with the TMT rebars, but this is a complete product portfolio, which is a wide spectrum of the steel products that we are dealing with. And mind it that we are dealing with only the carbon steel, not the stainless steel. And even with the carbon steel, we are dealing with a number of products. Let's again go with this bird's eye view and do a narrow vision of the product portfolio. We are moving towards the TMT rebar. For the TMT rebar, we are having the total production capacity of 1.4 plus 1, that means 2.4 MTPA. On a monthly basis, it is roughly more than 1.5 lakh tons of TMT rebars. And recently, we got introduced into this domain. India's first TMT rebars of 500D grade with 45 and 50 diameter. And currently we are in talks with NPCL, one of the prestigious and topmost projects of the central government, the Nuclear Power Corporation of India. We are in talks with them for our 45 and 50 mm diameter rebars. This is a typical flow of any steel mill, any integrated steel plant. The three raw materials, the three key raw materials are the iron ore, then coal, then the limestone. So initially we go with the iron making, then the iron making is followed by this steel making, the primary steel making, then followed by the secondary steel making, and finally the casting. So what we have as a TMT rebar, it actually goes through all these processes before it has a typical solidified structure. And after all these things, this is a cast structure. It goes through the rolling thing. And you might have always wondered that why all these brands, Tata, JSW, Neo Steel or Jindal Panther and others are having always quite higher, significantly higher prices, roughly 5 to 6 sometimes, but at times these are at par with the secondary or scrap-based steel manufacturers. So these are some of the reasons that why any steel manufacturer is actually charging a premium, because we are taking utmost care in steel making. The steel is actually taken just like any designer or architect, it actually takes care of its design as a baby. So we also take care of the very high hot steel at 1600 to 1700 degrees Celsius, and we take very much caution in making of the steel. Once it is actually made and the chemistry is achieved, so it shouldn't actually get into the contact with the atmosphere. So at all levels, be it casting or the steel making, it is completely closed in nature. This is a typical sketch of our Patratu plant. This is 1 MTPA unit. It starts from the reheating furnace, heating it to 1180 to 1200 degrees Celsius. Then it goes for the rolling, starting from the scale removal at the descaler. These are typical roll sets that we are having, or any steel manufacturing has it. This is where the cooling takes place for the TMT rebar. This is of 102 meter long cooling bed. And what's special is there in the technology. So we are actually dealing with the HYQST, high yield quenching and self-tempering technology. So we are actually not letting our production or productivity to go down, and we are also not letting our quality of steel also to go down. So this is how we actually balance with the both. This is a typical macro structure or macro etch thing that looks like, and these completely concentric rings or then circle should be there for conformance of the uniformity of the cooling of the TMT rebar. If it is not there, it is not going to perform as required. And you will definitely find elliptical kind of shapes into the secondary or the scrap-based manufacturer TMT rebars, which eventually sometimes fail into the bending testing. This is the evolution of the TMT rebar, and since we are actually talking about the TMT rebar or the things that so far for the past 1.5 to 2 hours we had been talking about what all is there at the outside of the structure, and now I am actually talking about what is there inside the skin or the beneath the skin as nerves and the bones of the structure. So how we can actually help the architect and the designers to get their cost reduced prior to the final design and prior to the final architecture kind of thing. So this is that we can, once we offer the higher strength material, once the structural consultant and the structural designer gets these things into their design, they can actually realize, you can see this, the bottom red line, the 1% increase in the strength of the material, it roughly gives 0.5% of the saving in the steel. So once the steel increase from 500 to 550, it's a 10% jump. So generally 5% or 6% saving is assumed there. This is how it actually looked like. The gapping, the spacing between the rebars would be increased once we switch towards the higher strength TMT rebars. This is a typical case study under the PMAY, Prime Minister Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. We carried out with the Lucknow Development Authority, and we realized that roughly 7.5% of saving as compared to this 415D to our 550D, the saving per square feet in the TMT rebar is 7.5%. The government entity realized that and they gave us approval for that project. This is mentioned here over here. This is also quite an important thing that once you go to the market, how do you actually recognize our product? These are the things that you will find on our product. The Jindal and Panther markings are there with their logos. And to the opposite side, there are 4 things: the grade of the material, size of the rebar, ISI mark, and there is 6-digit unique identification number which is provided by the government entity, the BIS only. And we are in a sense completely different with the way of Tata and others, Tata and SAIL, since we are having no re-rollers in our domain. So these are the only 3 manufacturing units that we have, and these are the 3 numbers that one can actually find in the market. We are having a number of international as well as domestic approvals from central and various state government entities. And also for the sustainable production point of view, we are offering not only the green rebars, and sir, you would be glad to know that in domain of structural steel, the beam, column, channels, we are offering the same Green Pro certified green steel as well as high temperature resistant steel. That means it has been tested up to 600 degrees Celsius for 3 hours of duration, and it has to sustain that temperature. Ours is the only structural steel, and ours is one of the 3 TMT manufacturers in India which is certified by with this certification. These are some of the key projects which in which we have provided our not only the TMT rebar but other products also in AIMS, IITs, IIMs. And again, the infra projects, the bridges also. Delhi, Meerut RRTS, we have supplied our TMT rebar for its foundation and other things. That's all from my side. Thank you.
And Mandar from Marriott team to please step on the stage.
So Mandar is here. He has the design. And we just buy the watch, not more than 2 minutes, Mandar. Thank you for coming all the way from Mumbai. He's the one who really brings the flag of Marriott with across 34 band. Give him a big hand. He's here to meet all of you. One of the most dynamic person in the industry, and I've been a big admirer, the kind of appetite and the kind of footprints and the flags they do. Virtually how many, Mandar, you do? Quick one.
So basically, thanks, Obor. I mean, for partnering with us and then trying to create a small workshop, which will be in Delhi in the month of October. What we are trying to do is, get all you designers in that event, along with our owners, investors, and partners who want to build more hotels. And the whole idea is to collaborate with them, understand Marriott's brand, and how we can all help build more hotels in the country.
So essentially, to cut the chase, he's looking talented designers. And to that, he also wants to say that we've got more than 150 hotels.
150 hotels in the country right now.
See how much I follow Marriott. So I think Hotelier India and Marriott are joining hands together. It's going to be in October in your city at the Courtyard Aravali, which is supposed to be a gem of a property, and about 100 owners. So thank you, Mandar, and over to you, Amrita.
Thank you. It's now time for a very interesting message from our exhibit partner, L&T Electricals and Automation. And now, for the much-awaited Doyens panel discussion, the session that we all have been waiting for. I would like to request Architect Vivek Gupta to step on the stage again, introduce the panelists for the session.
You know, I said humbling, but this is a moment of pride for me that these industry doyens who've seen it all, done it all, they're here on one call. I feel privileged to have amongst us countries leading architects and designers. Hey, listen guys, I'm introducing you. अच्छे से बोल रहा हूँ, तुम सुनते जाओ. The doyens of the industry are here for you to give their gyan. They've seen it all, they've done it all, and the pearls of wisdom that will flow from them are for you to take. Let me get the ladies first. Sonali Bhagwati is practicing for last 38 years now. She looks, I would have settled for her in the next gen panel, but look at her. The inspiration for all of us with the fitness and the zeal to do work, continue to do some amazing work. Next in line is the Sultana of Design. Here she goes. Iram. Privileged to have these two ladies. Next in line is the maverick Manish Gulati of Mofa. With a wine glass in his hand, I'm very scared now. He's got all the energy and he's got all the chutzpah now to take on anybody and everybody who comes. The poster boy of all luxurious design, Rudraksh Charan of 42mm architecture. Caught between these stalwarts, I don't know, and I'm exhausted on all my vocabulary. I'm a Hindi-speaking guy. I'm completely exhausted on my vocabulary. So pardon me, but again, talking about the same thing and trying to negotiate between economics and aesthetics. I know all these panelists here come from a very, very strong point of view, and their POV has been respected by the clients. The clients come to them only because of the ideology that they carry, the practice that they carry, and the project is not aligned to what philosophy they carry in their practice. So I think I will start with the, if you guys are settled, यार मैं बात करूँ तुम्हारे साथ. क्या चल रहा है? Is that a throne or something? अच्छा ऐसे. This is called as right menu. When you have a girl sitting next to you, it's a correct menu. Okay, so.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, everyone. I don't really have a presentation. It's just a few slides put together, like literally at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When Vivek said that design versus aesthetics versus economy. So in any case, I don't think that's even a question. For any architect, any designer, there is no question that there is no aesthetics. That comes first, irrespective. Every project has a budget, however high or low it may be, and we all in our practice have worked our aesthetics into that. And, that's something which is a given. And all I wanted to say is that, sometimes it's very important for us to educate the client. They may not have an idea, they may not have a concept of what kind of budgets to allocate to create a certain vision. And I think it's up to us architects to actually go ahead and push the client to the extent that we feel it's possible to sort of help us realize our vision for their project. So this is a small, a few slides I have from, we did an expansion for the Thapar University in Patiala, and it was a sleepy old university, I think 40 years old. And we actually worked with the client because they needed to generate these funds. They did not even envisage these funds, but then together we worked so that they could generate these funds in order to start creating this whole new university, this whole new concept that we put together for them. So I think it's not fair to say it's either or. I think they both have to work together. Can we go to the next slide? So these are just a few shots of what, if you see this building, it's definitely not what economy is all about. But at the same time, you needed to spend this money to create something which is going to work well. It creates a well factor, it creates a zeal, it creates excitement, it creates vibrancy for the student body which is going to be using it. So it's not just the money, but it's what it gives back to the community that's equally important. And that's what we as architects need to make sure comes through in our projects. This is all a very monochromatic color palette. Let's go back. It's a very monochromatic color palette. It's a single material that we worked with, but it's just an exploration of various forms that is there that creates this entire campus. So this is the kind of approach which I feel as an architect we have to push the client. And they found the 600 crores that was required to create this. They did not have it, but they generated it because they also wanted a vision like this to be realized. So I think that's where I'm coming from. This is a small project where the client came to us where they wanted to build out this little sales gallery. So they had this little building that they were going to make, in which we were supposed to do a sales gallery. This was just like a pre-engineered building. Next. And it had a layout that they wanted, something on these lines, which was like a very static, straightforward approach to a standard sales gallery for a project in Ludhiana. So what we said is that you don't have to be mundane. You need to impart design and you need to impart aesthetics to whatever you are doing. So we took the same box, the same envelope, and we actually changed it to something like this, where it actually becomes very inviting. It becomes an identity for this particular development, and it actually creates an experience even while you get off from the car and walk till the entrance. So I'm just saying that it is exactly the same box, the same envelope. All we did is define it. We put in some materials, we put in a form, and we gave it an experience which the customer will cherish. When it came to the interior, we decided to, oh my God, this has become big. We decided to completely sort of change the way you came in. You break the rigidity of the box. You start changing your perspective. You start changing your dimensions, and you actually start, you have these lines which take away from the rigidity that was there in the earlier box. You introduce indoor landscape. You have various forms that come in and break the monotony. And the requirements remain the same. There wasn't really any budget that really got disturbed, but it really got a form and design, a sense of aesthetics, which was so clearly lacking earlier. Next. And that's how the sales office sort of turns out to be. This was another, it's a home in Gurgaon, and this is what was there to start with, which was what I call the economy home, and the same home with a little bit of design that was being imparted, with an identity of a Marilyn being created, sort of gets an identity without actually changing the form. So aesthetics is something which can never be questioned. We are designers, and I think that's a given. We cannot sort of look back on that. This is how a washroom was, and that's how the washroom becomes, with a little intervention of aesthetics and design. That is what a washroom was, and that's what it becomes with a little intervention in aesthetics and design. So it's just a little bit of, it's something which I feel is so integral to the way we think and work. And I think every project, every approach, I think Amrish he's a case in point of how you can sort of take aesthetics and infuse it into every project, every form, every requirement, every client. And I think that's what we need to do. So as far as I'm concerned, there is absolutely no question. There is no comparison between economy and aesthetics. It's aesthetics first, and economy just has to come in. It follows. I mean, we all work within that.
Thanks, Sonali. Before we move on further, can I request everybody at the back of the hall to please come and sit, or at least not be talkative. It doesn't make sense for us to be speaking here unless you guys are paying any attention. Can the organizers please ensure that everybody is seated? Otherwise, this doesn't go on at all. At least it's not acceptable to me. Please make sure that everybody is sitting up ahead and in front, and please don't talk. Thank you. I think, Manish, if everybody's made presentation, should we have them run at the back and then we get on with the conversation? Yeah. So just next, please, quickly.
This is a government project, L1, done by an L1 contractor, cost of 3,500 rupees a square foot.
Manish was not L1.
And National Institute of Water Sports, aesthetics and economy. You can keep running it. I'll keep talking. Aesthetics and economy are mutually exclusive of each other. They do not kind of correlate. So you can't say this is versus this. A resort in Manali done at 4,500 rupees a square foot, including the interiors, overlooking the hills, private project. I'm just going to run it quickly. 3 projects that I'm going to talk. A house in Delhi done at 2,200 rupees a square foot, 8 years ago, of course. Add the cost index, it's going to be about 3,500 today, but still, the point I'm trying to make is, wait, did I get the right notebook? We have to, so there's a myth that has been propagated, I think from the school time onwards, and when we were in school and we come from SEPT, that architects have too much of responsibility on their shoulders to change the world. No, we don't have that responsibility. We are designers, we are problem solvers, we do design engineering. A client comes to us with a problem, and we're supposed to solve that problem using design. It's as simple as that, X plus Y equal to Z. But we go on to a lot of these parameters of trying to change the world, trying to work as a psychologist, as a socialist, as a various things, and then we get confused with this whole matrix of what works with economy and what doesn't work. A project can be very, very simple, and I work with a lot of governments all across the country. They have a scheduled rates, and you have a design intent. It does not mean that you make the same design over and over again just because you follow the schedule endlessly. The written word matters when it comes to the costs. And whether it's the plinth area rates, whether it's the specifications, it's the word that talks, not the lines that talk in these projects. More clear you are about how much you know about your subject of design, what the client wants. And I think any other industry, whether it's the fashion industry or the advertising industry, the economy and aesthetics go hand in hand. Only in design, in architecture, we have this tussle and we say that either we follow this or we follow that. No, it doesn't work that way.
Manish, shall we carry on with the discussion subsequently after Iram makes and Rudraksh make their presentation? Quick ones.
That's me. I don't really want to talk about the images. They basically, if you
Just
can
play
run
that, please.
through, they are various projects which cover a span of commercial, residential and office interiors. And I think our conversation will discuss this in more detail. It's just a little background to the kind of work we do. Thank you.
So this is just going to be a silhouette of the kind of work we've done in terms of diversity of style and diversity of scale. So these are just some houses.
Your loss, Rudraksh. We are not getting up.
Yeah. I want you guys to just remember that building because I will talk about that. Can we go back a slide? Just remember this building, we'll talk about this and then further. So I'm just going to be comparing two buildings for the economics of it. Then just remember this during the discussion, it's going to come down. And some interior pics of vivid houses, which are very diverse in its sense. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, over to, let me tell you about each of these panelists. Rudraksh is somebody who failed in economics. So we should not talk to him about economics. He failed miserably. He didn't even attempt the paper. So we will not talk to Rudraksh about... outside his office, there is a plate which says, if your budgets are lower than 30,000 rupees a square feet, please don't dare come inside. Go to Iram. Then go to Iram if if the budgets are higher than 30,000 rupees square foot and you are ready to spend crores, then go to Iram. She'll put art worth that much. Economics goes out of the door for their case. Manish is somebody, he used a word that we are problem solvers. I beg to differ here. I think we should be seen as solution providers and thought leaders. If we are always going to be solving a problem, I think we are defeating the purpose of being an architect. We need to be proactively solving problems. So solution providers and thought leaders. And that's where I want to pick your brains on. Every time you do...
No, you can't go further. Thought leaders? What is this fragile ego of an architect speaking out here? I mean, you've already talked that you've already proclaimed that we are leaders. No, we're not leaders.
I said thought leaders. And let me just tell you about your own work. When you do all the value engineering that you're doing, you spoke about the government project that you're doing, the value engineering that you do is not problem solving. It is solution provider to a plinth area that you got, your aspiration, and marrying the two together. I think it's a fantastic example. So I, in fact, am giving you brownie points, so take them.
I'm being modest.
All right. So, but yeah, having said that and seen the project that we are talking about, there are 4 diverse kind of projects that, or typology that they have. And each practice, as I had said, that they are the architects who can actually throw out a project if it doesn't align with their ideology, it doesn't align with their way of working. I know of Iram having walked out of projects if she's obsessive about detailing and stuff like that. And if it doesn't meet, if the contractor is not up to the mark, I don't know how many contractors she would change. But then this is what is happening now. The doyens of the industry are also there as flag bearers to the style that they have. And that style is also aspirational, fulfilling the aspirations of people. So Iram, tell me what, when we briefly spoke about how there's a different typology that you're working in when you're not doing architecture. In interior, you are actually inheriting a built form, which is already there, and your job is to infuse life, aesthetics, and everything. The building may not be very aesthetic, so inside out, you want to make it beautiful. You would make changes, a lot of changes in that. So then the budget will go out of the place. Is that correct?
I don't think it really functions like that. I think as a practice, whether it's architecture or what I do, I think we're essentially contextual, collaborative, and client-driven. I think that applies to everyone who's sitting here or friends who are in the audience. That's how we all practice. I wanted to get your question about camellias and Jaisalmer. You're not asking me that because I would say yes without the hesitation. You really were unfair. At the end of the day, it is about what your client wants. I don't believe that I'm translating my vision or my so-called style. I think I'm a storyteller. I've said this many times, and I don't tell my own story. So when I'm telling somebody else's story, that's the intent that I go in with. Now, the economics of that depends also on what they want, what my clients want, what they're looking for. If they are looking for a particular materiality or there's a certain idea that they have in their mind, my job is to aesthetically create that to the finest level possible. So I don't think the economics come into that. What I was talking about, I had a conversation with Manish and Vivek the other day. My conversation was that as an interior designer on this panel, I think there are different set of parameters that everyone grapples with. Manish will have a different set, you will have one, Rudraksh will have one. But mine are simply that when I come into a space, the space is predefined. To a large extent, there's a certain volume that I have to play with. The volume has been defined by the architecture. And let's not kid ourselves. The volume will affect the economics of that because I will dress a larger area. What I do with it will also be affected to bring maybe, say, let's say, warmth to a larger volume. I will have to use, or I would want to, not have to, maybe I would want to use a veneer which is going to bring that into the space. So I think I was talking about parameters being interestingly spread across the two fields.
I was asking you about the materiality that you're choosing, and you spoke about using Jaisalmer or something like that in one of your projects. In half the time you said you are a storyteller, and you are telling not your story, but the client's story.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, 80% of the times, the clients, we think that they know what they want. I don't think they know what they want. And that's why they come to an architect or an interior designer, because the storytelling is something that sometimes you have to articulate for them, in the sense that, they do not know no material. They wouldn't know anything about any material.
Yeah.
So you tell them, so what is your choice? Is it a cost-effective choice, or you think that you are in the business of glamorizing, pardon my using that word, glamorizing interiors? Would you go for an expensive material and not look at the economy of that material, or you are sensitive to the needs of the client?
I think it's a myth that nobody looks at the economy of anything. I think even the best client or the most liberal with their wealth client will look at the economy of scale everywhere. But if you look at my work, the idea was that you look at the way that we use materials. I'm not necessarily interested in using the most expensive stone because it does nothing to me. I don't think that's what you experience every day, but I do think that something I touch, like the fabric on a chair, will make my everyday experience different. What is my intent? What is my goal when I'm working with someone? I want them to feel happy. It's really as simple as that. It's funny that Amrish's presentation began with that. But if someone can walk into their home and feel a sense of joy, feel a sense of belonging, and COVID brought that home more than any other time. You felt secure, you felt like you belonged, and you felt happy coming to your own home, then I think my job is done. It really isn't about the most expensive marble, or it isn't about anything else. It's about what you touch, what you feel, how your home has an emotional quality, whether your friends and your family feel welcome. It's about bringing emotion into your design.
You're talking about experience, that your designs have to be experiential.
Yes, completely.
Rudraksh, on the same thing, I wasn't joking when, there's a certain scale that you've started operating in, and fair enough, because you're dealing with the aspirations of people, and all post-COVID especially, and even before that. People want to make statements, especially in the residential sector. They want to make a statement. How do you help them make that statement? Is it the size, the opulence, the materiality, or just the design? We spoke about some sensible design as the lay of the land demands, and of course, it's given an architect should do that. What is your approach? Do you, right in the beginning, without wasting time, talk to the client, educate him on the cost that his aspiration is going to be involving? Do you work like that? What is your methodology?
See, at a very macro level, I have decided we have decided that we are not here to change the way people live their lives, you know. So if somebody extracts pleasure out of the kind of brands that he wears and he moves, I'm not there to educate him that you depart from that lifestyle and you start moving towards a lifestyle of maybe somebody who wears a khadi ka kurta. Simple as that, right? That's not my job. I've identified that, and that's not what I aspire to do. Now, the second question is that whether I want to work with the kind of people who align with my sensibility or not. Well, for houses, I don't think that makes any difference as a designer. If you are an empty signifier, if you are a person who is designing for a family, I think it is very important for you to understand what the sensibility of the family is, irrespective of whether the family understands what their sensibility is not, you know. So I always give my clients an example of something like, you know, it's very difficult for you to comprehend the aesthetic of your house, but it's very easy for you to comprehend the clothes that you are going to be wearing in a wedding in your family. So are you going to be wearing something which is very blingy, or are you going to be wearing something which is branded, or are you going to be wearing maybe a cotton ka superbly defined suit? And that is what is going to give me the sense of the character of the family. So I think it's important, let us understand what the aspiration of the family is. You are definitely going to get the people who I call the brand ki dukaan, and you are always going to get different kind of people. And in fact, there are a lot of people who have inheritance and also have excessive baggage in their mind that you are designing for, and they don't want their house to look very expensive, but they want it to be expensive, you know. So it's a dialogue. And I think there, as a designer, vis-a-vis a designer working for a public forum is different. You know, when you're designing a house, your temperament is very different. You need to understand the family and you need to understand what we need to give them. And if you're designing for public, then you need to start thinking about so much more in terms of you as an architect start giving to the community what is going to be better for them, because most of them don't know what they want in terms of their public sensibilities. So I think this is the macro sense. I don't think materiality is the only thing, like.
No, because it affects the cost directly. So
absolutely. No, it does. Like brands affect the cost, materiality affects the cost, something outrageous affects the cost. You can build a building which is out of scale. I've just done a building which has a helipad, so obviously it affected the cost. So obviously, all these things are going to make a difference, right? But then the ambition of the person was to get a helicopter, right? And that was defined before he defined the architect.
Point well taken, but you know, there are times when there is no client. You spoke about the aspiration and the ambition of a client. There are projects people like us and Manish do where there's no client. In the sense, it's a government project. The brief has come from somebody, maybe the Secretary Government of India, who's changed after 3 months. He had a vision. After that, the complete onus remains with an architect to create a narrative around the original brief and carry it through the project. And that's where I feel an architect is extremely engaged in value engineering. And I see that happening in a lot of projects that Manish does every time. Also, he and I have been in a domain where we participate in competitions to get a project. And beyond that, you know, that competition brief that was there, or the design that we built at that point in time, perhaps was a little utopian, maybe that it didn't involve the costing at that point in time, but that original intent then has to be carried through because you won that project and then you need to carry it through the entire construction. Manish's projects of NIFT or this water sports body in Goa have been going on. It's very frustrating for an architect. How do you negotiate all of that? And the second question is, it's not about the economics of the project alone. It's the economics of running your studio for a project that is as long drawn.
Vivek, before Manish answers this, can I just add in a very small objective sensibility of economics? This came out of a real estate model that we had been working on for a very long time. Actually, we did not work on that model. There was a real estate company that worked on that model. And that was my first realization of economics, and I've seen it translate in 11, 12 years because I've been involved in that project for 12 years. And I have a 25-year contract, and you know that project because you're doing a hotel there, right? So there was a vision, and there was a certain land cost. And the first project was built at X cost. But the principal architect who was visioning the project was like, this land, this project, we need to create some signature pieces to be able to get the X cost to 2X and then 3X and then 4X. Now he's not doing that because he wants the profitability of the developer to go up. He is only looking at the consumption and the aspiration of the people who are ultimately going to come and stay here.
Who are not known at that point in time. So it's the vision of the builder, aspiration of the builder, which could fall flat as most of the buildings, real estate projects fail. It's because of the misfounded aspiration that people think or project or something like that. So I think there could be, you're right on that sense, but then again, there's a fallacy to it. And that's why I would want Manish to address how does he manage that.
So Vivek, you talked about government projects, and every government project when there was a time when there were competitions, design competitions, and we used to genuinely engage in design competitions, work on them without any sort of commitment that we are going to win that project, and we would go head to head completing the entire design and giving it. These words which are visions and narratives, these are very big words. We go into kind of, there's a very single line brief at times with the government. They don't even know what they're looking for. They have a budget, they have a piece of land, and there is some sort of square feet area defined that this is roughly the project that's going to be. The program evolves, the budget evolves, but at the same time, there is this sort of quote unquote end-to-end budget that you can't exceed that and you have to work backwards from there. So you start your basic story writing or you start your designing as an architect. And you don't, when you say thought leaders, we don't start our design thinking that we are going to create some sort of a legacy or some sort of an iconic thing. No architect wants to create an iconic building. It just happens. Sometimes it just happens by the way the project moves. Most of our projects, NIFT has been going on for last 14 years in my office. It's in the third phase now. And I think we have literally got married to that project. And we used to hear this. You know, when we were in CEPT, Professor Rajay had his office at IIM Ahmedabad. And he was the lifetime architect for IIM Ahmedabad. And we used to say like, you know, he doesn't do any other project. He's only doing IIM Ahmedabad. But when I started doing NIFT, I realized that, what it means. It means that right from the smallest of issues of how that canteen, temporary canteen or a Maggie stall is going to be placed on a main master plan versus how a convention theatre has to be built and how the budgets have to be approved by the government, how the land negotiations happen, we end up becoming negotiators. We are master negotiators. So we are going to the ministers, we are going to the IS officers, we are going to the villagers to make presentations. We are doing everything there so that in the end, the design that we have done gets executed. The vision
Manish,
that
I feel we are slightly deviating from the topic. We will be talking
I'm coming to the economies of it now. The economies of it get defined still.
And also intertwine that with the aesthetics, you know, so these two have to be...
Vivek, that's what I'm saying, that aesthetics is not something that is defined in the beginning, it develops. You look at the local material.
Aesthetics is what design presentation that you did, because of which you won the project. That aesthetics has to be made...
It's a very cloudy idea. I mean, okay. Architecture students in their college think they have completed the design. Design thesis is one big thing. They say that this is my final design. That is a conceptual design that we present for a competition. And actual design starts after that. The moment you get into the plinth area rates, you get into the materials, you get into the engineering, you realize that that was just a cloudy idea. In order to get that vision as close to it, there's 1,000 steps that go into it. You have to understand your plinth area rates to your government specifications. You have to write down your own specifications. We have sat down and written specifications for 1 week, closed inside a room, in order to get that simple, material which is 60 rupees a square foot. We can't use expensive materials, but to value engineer it is what one needs to do. So economy is just a part of this entire game. It's a resultant. It's not something that is you start with.
I know, I get you, I hear you on that, but the fact is that, the project has to be done at a certain cost, and it is how you do it and everything is not the idea of discussion right now. What we are talking about, how do you marry the two? What takes preference? Will it be, altering the materiality? Will it be altering your design, which, if it is permissible, to achieve the optimization of cost and aesthetics?
It is ultimately the design vision that was defined in the beginning by you during the competition, and materiality is something that takes a secondary route. Even if you have defined 4 materials, the value engineering of that material to maintain the cost. So, as Amrish very nicely said, there are three constraints: quality, time, and money. You have money which is well defined. You can't increase that in the budget. That's given. You cannot go back. So that's there. Time, yes, it's unlimited time in government. You play with that. As far as the material is concerned, you can play with it. So we use the simplest of materials, the local material that is there, to bring down the cost. Now, whether you call it sustainable, whatever you call it, but bottom line is, it has to be finished within a cost. Otherwise, you're going to have CAG audits on you.
Amrish said quality, time, and money. Yeah. Are you compromising on quality?
No, we compromise on time in government. One factor is always
variable. You are not
compromising.
You are not compromising.
We can't help it. You can't help it because you have to maintain the costs. You have to maintain the quality. So when an L1 contractor comes in and he has to do that vision, he takes a long time understanding and value engineering your project. So the time takes a back seat, always.
Sonali, the diverse range of projects that you're doing currently is one of the landmark buildings in DLF. Again, working with the builder. Perceptibly, the best builder in the country who would have very rich specifications or something. But I know for the fact that very, very stringent budgets, and the buildings have become more industrial in their outlook. How do you manage within very strict timelines, very strict budget, and your vision of the aesthetics of that building?
I think for any project, whether it's a developer project or a private client or a home or an institution, it's your vision which is the most important. I think that needs to be established, and then the process that follows will come. You will evolve that process no matter what. But if you don't have that vision, there's no question of the process. So I think as an architect, it's our job to first look at the vision, and as long as your vision is clear, your vision is right, it takes care of the hopes and aspirations of the client, it takes care of the context where you're building, and it takes care of the well-being of the user. I think the rest is nuts and bolts, and I believe that will happen irrespective. So our job is what others cannot do, which is the vision.
So I get a drift that, it's like minimalism also. Amrish, Mohit, Sanjay, everybody sitting here, I'm sure that Mies would squirm in his grave looking at, I think minimalism is where good design can also be. So when we were talking about aesthetics, do you find Mies's building aesthetically extremely pleasing? The problem is that I think minimalism, to me, is a state of mind. It is, I call that hippism of architecture. You need to have a way of life only to be able to achieve that. So I'm discounting everybody on this panel of not being that hippie in their thought process of finding aesthetics through minimalism. Is that correct? Or please correct me if I am wrong.
But minimalism will not exist without maximalism, because you will not be able to define it. Because minimalism is just going to become the norm if maximalism is not there, right? How will you understand that this thing is minimalistic if you have not experienced something which is maximalistic, right?
Intangible quality to it.
Why have you brought minimalism?
Mies is like math. It's perfect, but not necessarily pleasing.
You talked about Mies. Mies was a very different context. It's post-World War II. We have to understand history, brutalism, modernism.
There were other people who were, there were other
Whatever
people who were doing-
it doesn't
I'm
apply
talking
to our
about when we are
context at
talking
all.
about aesthetics and cost, I'm talking about that.
It's
So
not
I'm
the
saying-
style that defines the cost, Vivek.
It's
It
not-
can
so
never
that's
be.
exactly. So do you think minimalism is also very aesthetically pleasing? It may not be to everybody, like Sonali said, but is that also a way to build?
No,
When you
a minimalism needn't be very cost-effective way of building. A minimalist, neat building can also be very expensive, depending on the workmanship.
How would
it is
that
more
be?
expensive?
A Poisson building, which is, let's just say, defining minimalism, will possibly be more expensive because...
Why do you say that?
Because the quality of workmanship, there is nowhere to
Absolutely.
hide. In a minimalist space, there is nowhere to hide.
There is no...
The lines and levels, everything
Yeah.
is immaculate.
So
Your
do you think you
workmanship-
get away with the non-plumb lines and stuff like that when you do a maximalist building?
I mean, it's not about that. It's
That's
okay.
exactly the point that I'm trying to make.
Compare
And I want-
Mises building
I want-
with Gary's
I want
building.
to pick your brains
I
on
think
that.
I think the temperament of minimalism as life in terms of consumption of minimum material, of consumption of minimum energy, of consumption of minimum resources, I think that at a very large level would be more economical. But the kind of precision in your mind that you would need for a minimalistic building, where you would want to engineer it, where you won't want to have all the complicated systems simplified to such a level that they become invisible, would be stupendously
that's why I
Vivek,
said
it's,
it's a
it's,
way of
four,
life,
it's
yeah.
4 materials versus 40 materials. I'm seeing youngsters doing restaurants or interiors with 50 different materials. 5 materials go wrong, they're not in plumb, nobody sees it. 4 materials, minimalist building, you're going to see every line and level. The workmanship needs to be 4 times the cost. It is more expensive any day.
I somehow beg to differ on that because, when we are talking about precision in workmanship, that's given. I mean, how can you condone that? You can't. Look at Iram, she's holding the mic. She would condone that? Would you condone that? You'll bloody throw the...
She's not a maximalist, are you? She's not.
I wouldn't, no, I wouldn't say. So you would want
Vivek
to...
Gupta, I have a question for you. Am I a maximalist?
You are an optimization expert, I would say, for the project.
Careful, Vivek,
Guys, I've
careful.
got this slip in my hand which doesn't allow me to...
Therefore,
That's a
the
nice way of
economics
putting
are...
it.
No, therefore my economics are well balanced, right?
Yeah, perfectly. For the client base that you have, and that's why, you see, the whole idea of having you here versus the Gen Next was that I said that right in the beginning, that here are the people who toe a line and toe a line for a reason, with conviction. And I think so there is no debate in that, there's no argument. Each one of you has a very strong viewpoint, and I respect that. I was just trying to see if there is any poking that makes you waver from your thought process.
I have one very clear agenda, and you know this, you've known me for many years. I'm the eternal student. I don't think I have an agenda when I go into a new project. I think if you go into something with an open mind, I've learned something from every project, successful, unsuccessful, mistakes, successes. It doesn't matter. I think I will find that as a common point. I think maybe age brings you there. I'm happy to say that, but I think as long as you're open, there's no fixed point of view. I just want to say I don't have a fixed point of view.
I want to talk about this, one client of ours who has been doing affordable housing all along, and they still continue to do, which was all very run-of-the-mill. So they brought us in to say, how can this affordable housing, without increasing the cost, be nice? So we've actually sat and put together material palettes, color palettes, the way to do things within that same parameters, within the same budgets, the same base costs, but put it in a manner which has imparted design, which now makes it into a proper home rather than some randomly finished homes, and it gives an identity. So I think that's how we as architects have a responsibility, and that's what our job is.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Manish, anything to say? I have this slip in my hand which has said you're over time by 20 minutes.
No, I mean,
I think we have another 10 minutes.
One final point I want to make about when you asked me about office economics, and office economics is for all the young architects. I think we are very averse to technology. And I keep putting this agenda all the time. The moment you automate your processes, we are an office of 10 people that is running projects which are of mega scale. And we have automated literally 60 to 70% of the design processes to the drawing processes. We've started using AI to create mood boards. We've started using AI to automate a lot of drawings. We use scripting to generate working drawings. So even if your project is running for 12 years, 13 years, you've automated to a level where the man-hours are minimized to like 1/8, 1/10 of the time. And that is something which is extremely important. I don't know why architects are averse to technology.
I need to talk to you about this and learn a little bit from you.
I don't know how much of takeaway did we have from the panel, but at
Vivek,
least
we have Mohit ji here, and he has a question to the panel.
And it's a question to the panel, including you, Iram. Where does the collective consciousness of designers play a role when it comes to balancing aesthetics versus economics in developer projects? The impunity with which developments are coming in the hinterland or even in the metropolitan cities. And answering to you, Manish, I think thought leadership also comes in the way you lead the design. In India, again, I'll use the word impunity with which the designs are being done. There's no remorse, there's no respect to the ecosystem. So how do you lead? How do you lead design changes? How you are able to really, influence? It's not just anything shoddy will work. I think there's a much higher collective consciousness that needs to come from designers.
Mohit, I think you can only lead by example. And no matter how much we keep fighting the system, how many projects are actually designed? And there's somebody who made that point that 5% of the projects are designed in the government. It's not a wrong fact. Actually speaking, most of the projects that are happening as run-of-the-mill, and rampant developments are happening. Not many people can hire architects or designers to do things. So the point here is that whatever project you do, even if it's one small project or a large project, you can only create an example, and no matter how much impact it takes on your office economy or whatever, you have to understand what is the message you're putting out to the world. And that is always a background. Vision, no vision, that's not important. If you're doing an institution, you're doing a public space, you're doing it for the people who are going to be using it tomorrow, and creating an inspiration that if an institution of this kind has to happen, then what is the byline that you're leaving for the future generations? It's very, very important. And we all keep that in mind.
Mohit, I'm going to give you an example, and this is also, again, a real estate example. And this is probably one of the first projects in the world where, economics was defined by the intent or the vision of the architecture and the aesthetic that went into it. So, about 40 miles from London, there's the Southern Isle of Dog, which were the ports of London, which were in 1960s abandoned, and then they were looked at as a development project. And, the urban planning committee, whatever that was there in London, they looked at developing that as a very high-end waterfront. And that is what you know as of today as Canary Wharf, right? The project was launched, and for 12 years, nobody was ready to inhabit it. But today, it's one of the most successful commercial ventures in the world, which is the prototype of what you see today in most of dock redevelopment, including the Hudson Bay development in New York, right? These are what? There was no vision, there was no economics. The economics was created out of a vision, out of an aesthetic, and that economics is beyond what could have been there. It's as simple as that.
Box Park.
Rudraj, I think there is the economics of the land price that exists. When we talk about, Sonali spoke about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and all, how do we do, or the SRA project that are happening? SRA thankfully have started happening in the same land. It's a portioned area that goes to the slum rehabilitation. The issue in Canary Wharf was that the land was cheap, there was nobody moving there, central London was getting extremely expensive, and that was also the first attempt at having mixed land use. So they not only created offices, but they created residencies, they created hotels. They created a convivial atmosphere. They made malls. The entire station is a mall, literally.
Same with O2.
Yeah, so what we do here and why those projects fail is that we throw them out of the city in a remote location, disconnected to the hub, disconnected with the last mile connectivity, and we don't create a convivial atmosphere. So the basic premise of failure of that is that there is no saving of carbon footprint, there is equal amount of travel that is required, all of that is failed. So vision has succeeded also because the land was cheap and the vision was of doing not a district center or a downtown, but of a mixed land use. So I think again, this is where economics along with good design came into picture, and they did not have, there's a varying FSI over there that you know how the buildings are. So the residential have lower FSI, the offices have towers and everything. So it made a beautiful neighborhood, I think. So that is what...
Vivek, with your permission, may I just...
Creation of Gurgaon is also to that extent a creation of a large, I mean, of course, you can't compare it and it's very haphazard, but it is also creation of a new mixed-use hub where they still looked at creating a holistic urban environment which had transport, which had all the amenities, and that's what it means. Otherwise, Delhi would have exploded.
It's a 20-year-old city. Look at Canary Wharf has been there for what? Yeah, I mean, more than that. So,
Vivek, sorry, Mandar has been very anxious as the head of Marriott.
Yes, please.
And he's very enamored with the panel.
So there is the Marriott at the Canary Wharf also.
So I want just to take this last question, and people, I think for Delhi, you really rock. Thank you, Delhi. You are one of the amazing people in the audience that we have come across. Mandar, all over to you.
Thanks. How do you strike the balance between aesthetics, economics, and sustainability when it comes to, say, hospitality or any other design for that matter?
The question was three aspects.
I think I'll just do a quick one.
And if I can labor on that, I just want to labor just 2 seconds with your permission, Curator Saab. Instead of sustainability, I think in hospitality, Mandar, it's about ESG. So if you could just elaborate, any of it.
So Mandar, just to tell you, operationally, you guys are really doing all that you are doing, because right from your towels that you very politely say that if we can use it because of water consumption or whatever, so that's an operational level. But in design level, we were just discussing that, instead of the fancy, today, thankfully, we are designing hotels in 5-star hotels in land as less as about 1.5 acres. So, all that wastage of land and the operational cost of maintaining that hotel is gone. It's really come down. It's the design. So as I was saying, that design, sustainable design is in the DNA of an architect. So how much is your pipe length that is going to be there? How much of services are going to run? How efficient is your HVAC because of the orientation that you are giving? Views have become obsolete in city hotels that I'm talking about. Literally nothing. You will get no view. The best of the hotels like a St. Regis or a Four Seasons in Bombay doesn't have any view in the sense that you will overlook a squalor. I think so. A sensible design requires a lot of engineering input. We know a 32 square meter 5-star hotel and everything, that is given. But the engineering, the HVACs, the MEPs that go in the hotel, that can be made sustainable, and that's where we can be cost effective. The size of the window, as somebody spoke. The example is Ibis hotels. There is a worldwide standard window size. In some of the hotels in Ibis, the pre-engineered, pre-modular toilets come. They are put through the window. You don't need to make any tiles or anything. So I think those are the ways of...
Absolutely. I think, Mandar, you will have a heart full when we host all these incredible designers in Delhi, and the Sutradhar that you are.
Mandar, this was also a presentation to you whenever you want to...
So, Mandar, you got lots of people, and he said we're going to do in Delhi. I said Delhi rocks.
My name is Vivek Gupta. I practice out of Delhi, and please, sir. Thank you.
And Mandar, I have my own...
ज़्यादा काम हो तो बता दीजिएगा.
So
ये बहुत महंगे लोग हैं, आपने सुन लिया. उसके तो दफ्तर में नहीं घुस सकते. मैडम आर्ट लगा दी आपके. मैं गरीब आर्किटेक्ट कुछ भी करूँगा. Guys, thank you so much. I think there was some takeaway. I wish we had longer time, but we could have discussed that. But thank you so much to these guys who've taken out time. Thank you guys for your patience. I was a little rude, but then that's how it works. Thank you.
Requesting Vibhor Srivastava, Anand Mishra of Dorma Kaba. Do we have Anand Mishra of Dorma Kaba here? Okay, let's begin with the felicitation. Iram Sultan. Manish Gulati.
This gentleman has just won an award tonight. Give him a hand. They are my competition, so don't want to name them, but he has won.
I'm here both the places.
Rudraksh Charan.
Hi, Rudraksh. Thank you. Come here in the center, please.
Sonali Bhagwati.
You guys have been excellent, and thank you very much.